do it. All right, guys, we are live in studio, Fox 5 Live here on this Monday, Columbus Day, October 9th. I'm here with Gary.
A lot of people off today.
A lot of people off today. So if you're at home
Rainy Monday.
hanging out on a rainy Monday, yeah, if you're maybe federal government or just off from work, I'm Molly, and this is, of course, Gary McGrady in studio to talk about some weather. And you guys were just looking at a bump shot, actually, of both. Two things going on. So this is specifically Santa Rosa, California. Wildfires are spreading through California today.
Yeah, I mean, we were just looking at some stuff about what's going on out there. If you're familiar with Napa, and then you go, I guess, north and west in Napa, you run into Sonoma, and then all in that whole area, there's some crazy wildfires going on. And apparently, overnight, one of these wildfires went from 200 acres to 20,000 acres.
Oh my gosh!
We were just looking at earlier pictures. There's a lot of things burning right now. Houses, hotels, whole communities. So it's really awful, and there's I think 22 separate fires, more than 20 separate fires, and I just don't think there's enough manpower right now to get around to all these fires.
Wow.
So it is a huge, huge story, and it's not like Napa, where we think of going to Napa Valley to drink wine and taste wine and all that. I don't think it's that area. I think it's more around west, a little bit west of Napa, and up north and west of Napa, and then a little south of Napa is where most of these fires are. I'm not hugely familiar with the area, even though I've been to Napa a couple of times. But,
so these little fires kind of combine to make a big spread, and
well,
it's just...
the wind is blowing. I mean, they're getting some northerly winds at 50 miles an hour, so that spreads it like that. All the ash is blowing down into just north of San Francisco. I'm sure San Francisco too. So it's a serious thing going on there, and I think it really got out of control overnight.
My goodness.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty much the majority of our feeds that we're getting from the West Coast, but if we go a little bit more to the mountain states area, we had this double shot.
No idea what we're looking at.
There, yeah, so I know, exactly. So if we take us off here, there's the fire.
There's a lot of that going on, and it's only getting worse.
My goodness.
And look, this can happen when you have years of drought, then you get rain and everything grows back in, and then boom, there's all this tinder, there's all this, and it starts getting dry again, and then it ends up starting to burn off. So it's not good there.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, guys,
very dry, very windy.
Yeah, we'll take this full screen. So this is totally different, right? This is Denver, Colorado, Mile High City.
They're expecting 4 to 6 inches of snow in Denver today.
Oh my gosh.
They're expecting a foot of snow at the higher elevations west of Denver, obviously up towards Loveland and Grand Junction. I think Grand Junction may apply. No, not Grand Junction.
You're thinking Fort Collins?
All the ski resorts and whatnot
Vail.
up there. Vail certainly. And then tonight they're going to have temperatures in the teens. 15, I think, is the low tonight in Denver. Single digits in the higher elevations. By later on in the week, Wednesday, Thursday, lower 70s.
And wow. And I'm not an expert on this, but from friends that live in Denver, and you probably know this, it's up and down there. It changes all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
All the time.
Absolutely. Anytime that this even happens in winter for Denver, they can have a foot of snow in the city, and then 4 days later be in the 60s with nothing but sunshine. Yeah, that's indicative of Denver. Take this. Look at this guy.
Yeah, this is
you
back.
Don't see this very often.
Back in California. Let's listen in and see if we got some.
Attention stations,
Who knows what he's going to say?
I don't know. It's
of course, we were looking at it was clear, and now we put it up. And
I know.
It gets all broken up.
This is KTVU, our sister station in Oakland, California, right outside of San Francisco, of course. We'll see if he says something. Maybe he's going to give a little report on it, but
I don't know.
We'll see. We'll kind of keep an eye on that.
Just kind of get the sense. I mean, this is a neighborhood, so it's burned. I mean, we're going to have pictures like that coming in all day, and maybe for the next several days, unfortunately. Okay, so back here at home.
Yeah, let's go back to what we're looking at. Let's go.
Look
Three?
There you go. Perfect. You're in my mind. So the rain is out of here. We had the rain this morning. It's moved through. Obviously, we still have clouds. We may get some sunshine today, a little bit.
At the end.
And that will be, we could have a few more showers in the afternoon, but nothing like what we've already had. So just keep in mind, we're drier for the afternoon. There could be, I doubt it now at this point, there could be a thunderstorm pop up here or there if we get some sunshine.
This week or today?
Today.
Oh.
Today. And this is all from Nate. I didn't make this big enough to kind of show what's left of the circulation of Nate, but it's It's well up to the north of us now. It's racing along. What's left of the circulation is 50 miles an hour getting out of here. So this moved through quickly. Now, in its wake, I put some projected totals up. So CS1.
And Nate just became a tropical depression, is that right? And it sort of landed. It's nothing now.
Yeah, it's just remnants, basically remnants. Mm-hmm. So you've got, this is what we got this morning. Most of this is north of 66. If you draw the line from 66, 95, most of the heavy stuff was north. So parts of Frederick County, 2 inches. This is estimated, but it gives you a good idea what it is. So that's where all the north, Maryland basically picked up the 1 to 2 inch rainfall totals, which is what we thought they would. DC, Reagan National picked up a little more than a ½ an inch. So, and then the farther south you go, Southern Maryland, basically no rain, and we need the rain.
Yeah,
so
we
do.
do.
A little bit we get's nice. ½ an inch was great, but we do need some more. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more coming up Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at this week,
dry.
And then weekends I think sunnier. They were saying, or
hopefully
warmer?
We're talking. Hopefully by the weekend we're going to have temperatures in the back in the lower 80s and sunshine. Here's you can go back to that. I just threw this up. Just everybody got to get an eye. Whoops, it went away again.
That one, this one.
Oh no, it's
here.
I'm sorry, I don't even know what we're
doing. You're good.
But 76 right now, so these are current middle 70s. Culpeper's already 80, so we'll be lower 80s again today.
And humid because it's right because the rain.
Very muggy out there. That's right. And then so we've got the fires burning in Northern California.
Yeah.
A lot of snow.
Fires.
Up into. Can you see that one?
Yeah, let's go to this. This is Denver again.
Yeah,
this is a good one.
That's what it looks like in Denver right now.
Flashing around. These are all live sources, guys. Raw video.
Did it switch? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we have.
So that's what it looks like in Denver. They'll get 5 inches or so snow. And then by the latter part of the week there, it's going to be in the 70s again with lots of sunshine. So that'll melt
away.
Right. And then we're sitting over here much warmer than we should be. We finally got some rain from Nate, but we're certainly much warmer than we should be. It's October, and we kind of get these swings.
Right.
So chances are, if it's snowing in Denver, we're going to be on the warm side of that. So that's exactly what's happening now.
Interesting. So Nate was proved to be a little bit of a scare last week. Is that right? It kind of became something, and then
landfalling hurricane.
It was
good. Anytime it's a landfalling hurricane, you have to be concerned about it. It didn't get as much media play as Irma. It didn't get as much media play as Harvey.
Right.
But where it made landfall, right around Biloxi, Mississippi. Oh my gosh, the storm surge put 2 to 4 inches of 2 to 4 feet, in some cases a little bit more than that. So there's a lot of casinos there in Biloxi, right along the water. I think the rule in Biloxi is if you have a portion of the casino in the water, then it's legal. All those were inundated with storm surge.
Oh my goodness.
And it did a lot of damage down there, a lot of wind. It was a very small package of wind, but it was still, there were gusts down there close to a hurricane strength. I know there had to be a gust over hurricane strength, but I didn't see that. But it was a very windy storm, a lot of storm surge. It was just moving so quickly. It was moving 25 miles per hour once it made landfall, which is pretty rare for a landfalling hurricane. And it's just made landfall, late Saturday night?
I think I remember the tweets,
and already it's basically almost gone. So any landfall hurricane is a big deal.
And we go into sort of the end of hurricane season now, or into November.
Hopefully, the end of the month.
Nothing else really in the pipeline right now?
There's a new tropical depression out in the Atlantic now that's going to stay out there. It'll probably become Tropical Storm Ophelia, but it's going to stay out in the Atlantic, so don't worry about it. There was some hint, long-range models, there may be some more tropical activity down around the Bahamas, Virgin Islands, so long way away. We'll wait and see what happens. But it literally is not over until we don't have another storm. It could go into November. I mean, this is not a hard and fast rule, but officially the end of tropical season is the last day in October.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, Gary McGrady inside our digital newsroom. Thanks, Gary. You'll be around for this week. What are you up to today? Enjoying
I'm going home.
Yeah.
I've been here since 3:30 this morning. I think it's time to go home.
I dragged him over. All right, thanks for watching, guys. We're going to keep on this cool raw feed. They're doing a ride-along kind of in Denver to check out the snow. So we'll stay here for just a second and then switch it up.
That is amazing. I'm not looking forward to that.
To doing that here, because when it goes...
It's fun to do that, but I'm not looking forward to snow.
They put you in the snow.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to having to deal with snow.
Yeah, and this area dealing with snow is a lot different, I think, than these guys. So we'll see how it goes this winter.
I knew it was going to melt in 3 days. No big deal, but
good point.
Usually when we get it, it sticks around.
All right, thanks, Gary.
You guys have a fun day.
Yeah, thanks. You too. Get some rest. All right, we'll see Gary more this week, guys. We're gonna keep you on this sort of cool ride-along raw video here in Denver as we sort of track what's going on across the nation and different stories. If you're joining us on YouTube, thanks for joining us, guys. Feel free to comment on the live chat. I'm Molly inside the newsroom. We're gonna stay up with you and answer some questions and see what else is going on today from some other visitors in the newsroom and whatever else is live. So we'll see you guys soon.
Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields.
Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
American soldiers stood side by side with our allies to bring about victory in the Great War. Sergeant Alvin York, one of America's outstanding soldiers and recipient of the Medal of Honor, reflected on what was accomplished.
There are those who ask, you fought to make the world safe for democracy. What did it get you? Well, let me answer them now. It's not important what I got personally, but what we, as a nation and an army, achieved. By joining with our allies and gaining victory in this here war, we won a lease on liberty, but not a deed to it. We fought for the right of people to be free. Americans have always fought for that right. If we've stopped, then we owe the memory of George Washington an apology. For if we've stopped, then he and his men wasted their time at Valley Forge. Liberty and freedom and democracy are prizes awarded only to those people who fight to win them, and then are ready to keep fighting eternally to hold on to them.
I will always place the mission first. It's more than mere words to me, 'cause I'm a U.S. soldier deep in my heart. I'd give my life to keep you free, to keep you free.
I will never accept defeat. That's not what you'd expect from me. I grab my weapon and lace my boots up tight. I heed the call of duty, then I run into the fight. 'Cause I
the enemy and identify his vulnerabilities, all while connecting our forces and enabling precision operations.
I am a cyber warrior. I defend, attack, and exploit the cyber domain to set the theater, maintain our Army's technological advantage, and to win in the crucible of battle. I enable mission command and provide ground commanders unique capabilities to achieve military effects, opening windows of opportunity across all domains. When called upon, I defend our nation from cyber threats and strike the enemy through cyberspace. I can be in the field or thousands of miles away, but the effects I achieve are formidable.
I integrate fires and effects, leveraging the advantages created by my space and cyber comrades. I combine the massive capacities of our maritime, air, and land-based capabilities to take control of these domains and unleash the powers of our joint forces to degrade the enemy and set the conditions for their defeat.
We are our nation's force of decisive action. When the time is right, we lead the assault. We seize, retain, and exploit the initiative to close with and destroy the enemies of our nation in close combat. This is multi-domain battle.
I'm Staff Sergeant Riskin from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am privileged to lead the soldiers of our Army who will carry us to victory against any adversary. I ask all Army active duty soldiers, retirees, veterans, and Army family members to rise and join me in our Soldier's Creed. I am an American soldier. I am a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values. I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills. I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself. I am an expert and I am a professional. I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the enemies of the United States of America in close combat. I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life. I am an American soldier.
I'm a soldier, ready and strong. I'll lead you through the battle and I'll lead you home. I'm a soldier, ready for the fight. I stand for freedom, the American right. I'm a soldier.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and join us in singing the Army Song. Please be seated.
If that doesn't get you going, you got a pretty serious problem, I think. Secretary Mattis, Secretary McCarthy, General Milley, General Lingell, Sergeant Major Army Daly, and so many more distinguished guests. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you allow me to recognize a few distinguished guests. We're blessed this morning to have several former chiefs of staff of the Army. General Zvano, General Reimer, General Sullivan, General Shinseki, please, if you would, let us thank you for your long service. And I'll pick on one of that august group of four. Some of you may have met General Sullivan before. He has a bit of a relationship with the Association of the United States Army, and some of you may have heard some great personal news. General Sullivan is engaged to be married. He says that's best. Second best would be if the Red Sox would get back on track. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out. We're also honored this morning to have a number of former Sergeants Major of the Army. Sergeant Major of the Army Tilley, Preston, and Chandler are also with us. Gentlemen, please. A special thanks this morning to Major General Mike Howard, Commanding General of the Military District of Washington, Colonel Esch, and the men and women of the United States Army Band and Chorus. Thank you all so very, very much for a wonderful opening ceremony. Two other groups just to mention, to thank you for your presence. The Secretary of the Army appoints civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army who represent our Army across the land. And if I could ask the civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army, please stand and let us thank you for your long service. Thank you all so very much. This year we have more than 70 nations represented at the Association of the United States Army's annual meetings. If I may ask all of our international partners to rise and let us thank you for your partnership, your friendship, and your spirit of cooperation with the United States and the United States Army. Our international partners, please. One of the things you learn pretty early on is this soldier in business is a team sport, and it's great to have teammates like this. So thank you all very, very much. I'm honored now to introduce our keynote speaker for the 2017 annual meeting of the Association of the United States Army. You know him. He's well known to all. He's well known internationally. I had the privilege of serving alongside him. And if you ask me to define our keynote speaker with one word, I would simply choose patriot, because that's what he is at his very core. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Jim Mattis.
Thank you. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, General Ham, old friend of many years. It's an absolute delight to be here with you all. And I do appreciate being invited to something like this. I can probably find no place in Washington, D.C. today that I feel more at home than here amongst all of you. Acting Secretary McCarthy, we first met each other in those very uncertain days after 9/11 in Afghanistan, and we've served together for many years after that. Thank you for coming back to the colors, sir. It's a pleasure to serve with you once again. General Milley, we've served together. We know each other over many years. You have the DNA of Iwo Jima in your veins. You bleed red, white, and blue, and the Army could not be in better hands right now. Sergeant Major Daley, besides deciding to go out on the obstacle course this morning, that Army 10-miler yesterday, I guess, was just your warm-up for it this morning. So in the truest traditions of Army NCOs, where you lead from up front and put yourself in difficult circumstances voluntarily, thank you for your leadership as well. After that presentation, I'm going down to the recruiting office after I'm going to sign up for another 40 years, I guarantee you. But it was also something to remind us about the priorities that Secretary McCarthy, General Milley have made very clear in their time in office, and that is for readiness. And we will talk more about that, but I'm going to be very pleased to take some questions at the end of this. And so let's see if I can close the gap between a Secretary of Defense and all of you out there for a little bit. I would just tell you that I recognize that whatever ranks we wear today or we once wore, in this room we are all co-equal in our devotion to this wonderful magic experiment that we call America, and protecting our people and our Constitution. And we are co-equal, and that is the one thing that the American forces have always had in their ranks, a sense of co-equal devotion. So I'm honored to be here with you today, you who hold the line in this world. And I want to mention something about the veterans. In my talks with soldiers on the front lines, I've just returned from Afghanistan a few days ago, The only thing I think they would ever fear is letting down you and the legacy that you bequeath to them, because they know, based on what you've been through, that they can do the job, because it can be nothing worse than what you faced in your most difficult days, and that builds their confidence. And especially from me, on a personal level, a thank you to the Vietnam veterans who stayed in, as we heard in the presentation this morning, stayed in the Army, rebuilt the Army. They were the veterans who raised me in the Marine Corps and made me the Marine I was. So to all veterans, and especially the Vietnam veterans, you have my deepest affection for what you committed to our country. Thank you. Thanks very much. To our Medal of Honor winner, and to all of you who have been decorated and recognized for valor in combat, I just want to say to you, in great deeds something abides. Regardless of which war you earned the respect of your fellow warriors, your example of courage echoes today down through our ranks. To our Gold Star families who join us here today, as General Chamberlain of the 20th Maine said years after the Civil War, we pray daily to be worthy of your sacrifice. Thank you. As your Secretary of Defense, I am honored to join you. I'm grateful to serve once again alongside soldiers of the greatest army, the most trusted army on earth. To serve once again among the disciplined, ethical, capable, high-spirited soldiers whose character I have seen rise to every occasion in the worst possible circumstances. Soldiers who are always at their best when the times are at their worst. Soldiers who General George Washington would be proud of. For 242 years now, you have set the standard. For you are the soldier descendants today of ragged Continentals who left bloody footprints at Valley Forge. You who from Lexington to Bastogne to the Korengal, generation after generation, you have carried our flag in your hearts and the Patriot's fire in your belly. A fire that keeps alive our experiment that we call America, an experiment to determine if a government of the people, by the people, and for the people can long survive. A united army, united in commitment that stands as a model for our fellow citizens of what Americans who stand united can do. And our Army's ranks today are filled with willing, high-quality patriots, all volunteers, and again, I am very proud to serve with you. The international situation is the most complex and demanding that I have seen in all my years of service, and that's over 4 decades. In the Mideast, terrorists continue to conduct murder and mayhem despite significant and accelerating losses. One state sponsor of terror in the Mideast cannot hide behind its nation-state status, while in effect, it is actually a destabilizing revolutionary regime. In Europe, for the first time since World War II, we've seen national borders changed by the force of arms, as one country proved willing to ignore international law to exercise a veto authority over its neighbors' rights to make decisions in the economic, diplomatic, and security domains. In the Pacific, we've seen North Korean provocations threatening regional and even global peace, despite universal condemnation by the United Nations. So this is the reality that faces our Department of Defense and our like-minded allies, and we must have militaries fit for their purpose, fit for their time, in these days of emerging challenges. For these challenges include new domains of conflict in space and in cyberspace, and in ways that involve deniable attacks even on our democratic processes. Your Department of Defense is adapting because we do not want to be dominant and at the same time irrelevant. And I offer this problem statement for what must guide our efforts. How do we maintain a safe and effective nuclear deterrent so these weapons are never used and our non-proliferation efforts can be recharged? Second, how to maintain a decisive conventional force at the same time as that nuclear deterrent, one that will include space and cyberspace capability to deter war or end it decisively if conflict occurs. And third, we must at the same time maintain an irregular capability so we can fight across the spectrum of conflict. This is our problem statement: how to maintain a safe and secure nuclear deterrent and maintain a decisive conventional force that can also fight irregular warfare. Our department has 3 lines of effort to address these issues. First, everything we must do must contribute to the increased lethality of our military. We must never lose sight of the fact that we have no God-given right to victory on the battlefield. Secretary McCarthy and General Milley are examining every personnel policy, our training time, our organization, and more to ensure they contribute to make us the most lethal joint force in the world. Even as our competitive edge over our foes and adversaries decreases due to budgetary confusion in this town and the budget caps. I am among the majority in this country that believes our nation can afford survival, and I want the Congress back in the driver's seat of budget decisions, not in the spectator's seat of automatic cuts. I have great confidence in the U.S. Congress, but I have no confidence in automatic mathematical budget cuts. Second line of effort, we are following the example of the greatest generation coming home from the tragedy of World War II and who looked around and they said, "What a crummy world." But we're part of it, whether or not we like it, and we're going to do something about it. And in that spirit, they built alliances and partnerships. In the same spirit today, we are strengthening alliances and building new partnerships, whether it be NATO, the counter-ISIS coalition, the 39 nations standing together in Afghanistan, and expanding friend and partner bonds in the Indo-Pacific region. Secretary of State Tillerson's Defeat ISIS coalition is only one example of what this looks like in practice. 69 nations banded together, plus 4 international organizations, the Arab League and NATO, the European Union, and Interpol, all working in concert to defeat ISIS. But we also stand with our traditional allies as well as building new coalitions as we work together to defend our values. And to our allies here in this room today, I will tell you I had the honor of fighting many times for America. I never once fought in an all-American or solely American formation. It was always alongside allies. And I will just tell you, from NATO in Europe to the Pacific, the message to our allies is we are with you. Under Deputy Secretary of Defense Shanahan, our new Deputy Secretary and full of vigor, under him lies most of the continued effort for line of effort number 3, and that is the keen direction that he is helping to provide Secretary McCarthy and his fellow appointees to rework our business practices to gain full benefit from every dollar spent on defense. We are taking aggressive action to reform the way we do business and to gain and to hold the trust of the Congress and the American people that we are responsible stewards of the money allocated to us, and that it translates directly every dollar into the defense of our country and what we stand for. In all of this, the Army's importance is absolutely fundamental. Historian T.R. Fehrenbach once wrote, "You may fly over a nation forever, you may bomb it, atomize it, pulverize it, and wipe it clean of life. But if you desire to defend it, if you desire to protect it, if you desire to keep it for civilization, you must do this on the ground the way the Roman legions did, by putting your young men in the mud." I would only modify it today by saying, by putting your young men and women in the mud. And this is why the Army is so critical to our nation's security. I have by now grown rather remote from so many of you who man the ramparts, those of you who have looked past the hot political rhetoric to rally to our flag in the age of our high-quality, all-volunteer force. Yet while I no longer have the opportunity to get to know you personally, I do know your character. You could get out of the Army and make more money. You could get out of the Army and see more of your families. You could do any number of things, but you have the habit of putting others first, of putting your country first. At Antietam Battlefield Cemetery, the statue of a lone soldier stands atop a pillar, looking out across the graves of his fallen comrades. He's a private, and he is nicknamed Old Isaac, and it is inscribed on the pillar he stands above, quote, "Not for themselves, but for their country." Whether you spend a few years in your youth in the U.S. Army, ladies and gentlemen, or grow gray in the service to our beloved nation and its Constitution, rest assured you will always look back on the sacrifices of war, the demands of sergeants, and the frustrations of unpredictable deployments as the best years of your young lives. And even those of us denied the opportunity by our ranks to stand physically beside you every day, nonetheless, we join your fellow citizens in humbled awe of your willingness to sign a blank check payable to the American people, a blank check payable with your lives, to defend our revolutionary ideas enshrined in our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, putting freedom above all else. Now, if you want to know where I see modern war trending, I just ask that you reread General Milley's remarks from a year ago at this very convention. If you want a reminder of war's primitive, atavistic, and unrelenting nature, reread Fehrenbach's This Kind of War. If you want to see why I believe command and feedback must supplement our approach to command and control, read Rules of the Game by Gordon. If you want to know where I come from in terms of strategy, read The Future of Strategy by Colin Gray, the most near-faultless strategist alive today. And most importantly, when it comes to you willing and magnificent soldiers, those who from General George Washington to today carry our hopes on your shoulders, I say that you need only follow the Army creed we just all saw on the screen and recited. We need you at the top of your game in body, mind, and spirit. Physically, I salute Generals Milley and Frost's initiative to toughen the physical standards that they now have underway for the U.S. Army. I'm reminded that General Schwarzkopf, in the years after Vietnam, served under a Korean War veteran when he was a battalion commander, a brigade commander who insisted on tougher soldiers knowing what he had faced in the Korean War. Mentally, I want you to enhance your warfighting skills, assuming every week in the Army is a week to get better at integrating all Army and joint efforts to become more tactically cunning. So body and mind must be matched with the spirit. And spiritually, ladies and gentlemen, we need our soldiers to build your own and your comrades in arms resilience to take combat tests of your character in stride in the most primitive environment on earth. Let me close with a reminder to today's troops through our veterans' eyes. I want to go back to World War II, the greatest generation. Today, as we sit here, there is a 91-year-old World War II combat veteran from Maine. The veteran is Mr. Richard Lincoln, and he's now living in a veteran's home in Maine. He and his three brothers all fought in World War II, and he is the last surviving one. Mr. Lincoln has a remarkable story. As a 17-year-old from a very small town of Wayne, Maine, a town of less than 1,000 people, and standing just 5 foot 5 inches tall, I wondered as I read that, was that the effects of malnutrition during the Depression? Mr. Lincoln served as a first scout in the 88th Infantry Division in the Battle of Anzio, which, as you all know, was a grueling and historically important amphibious assault in the Italian campaign, an amphibious landing against long odds which permitted the Allied capture of Rome. He repeatedly risked his life on the front lines to identify enemy artillery batteries, regularly enduring enemy fire and never shrinking from enormous dangers. The 88th became the first draftee division to enter a combat zone in World War II. In 344 days of combat, the 88th Infantry Division lost 2,298 men killed in action and 9,225 men wounded. The Blue Devils, as they were called, proved that with rigorous training, sound teamwork, competent leadership, and fierce determination, an all-draftee division was more than capable of fighting well against well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened enemy. When the Allies liberated Rome on June 4th, everyone wanted to be the first into Rome, but the all-draftee 88th became the first division to enter the city. Although overshadowed by the Normandy invasion 2 days later, you all know the capture of Rome was a significant victory for the Allies. For his heroic service in that campaign, Mr. Lincoln was awarded the Bronze Star Medal, and on June 4th, 1944, the day when he and his fellow soldiers of the 88th Infantry Division entered Rome, Richard Lincoln turned 18 years old. Mr. Lincoln was and is today a humble, earnest, self-effacing man, grateful to be an American. He knows what it felt like to be shot at from very close range every day for months, since being a scout was about as close to the front lines as it gets. To this day, he wonders how he survived when so many comrades did not. He says he thinks it might have been because I was short, which is a wise point. I never envied tall men on the battlefield myself.
Yet burned.
Player. Unfortunately, right now we're having some spotty coverage on wireless communication, so it's difficult.
To the CAL FIRE chief, the supervisors mentioned the various fires and the various acreage. Do you have a kind of an overall view of how many acres are burning now throughout the county?
The latest update I had is what they reported on those 3 fires that are burning inside Napa County. I have nothing newer since that. We are.
Those numbers off the top of your head.
As I believe that the this fire is reported at 8,000 to 12,000 acres. Again, that was best estimates on our intelligence that we had in the dark. Air attack should be over the fire hopefully soon to give us a better update on the current fire situation. Partridge Road is somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 acres, and then the Tubbs fire is reported at 35,000 acres.
And the Tubbs fire is the one that went into Santa Rosa?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Can you talk about what happened with regards to the hospital? We know the mobile home park.
So I was the incident commander for the Atlas Peak fire. I'm not aware of exactly what happened over there when it went into Sonoma County, so I really can't speak to that. As far as this fire goes, we need the wind to die down. We need to get the aircraft overhead. We need to get the resources on scene, and so we can slow down. Right now, the head of this fire is running unchecked to the south. And again, as I told you, our life safety is the priority out there of both the people that we need to evacuate, the rescuers that are doing the work.
Thank you.
Certainly, we appreciate having the support of our Congressman Mike Thompson, and with us here today also is our Assembly Member Cecilia Aguiar Curry.
Good morning, and thank you very much. This is a really devastating day for many reasons. I represent Lake County, Sonoma County, as well as Napa County, and also there's a fire, I believe, in Yolo County. I appreciate all the work the Office of Emergency Services is doing, and Napa County have a great communications team, but don't let us not forget, this is a terrible day for many families. So on behalf of the Speaker of the Assembly, we are in communication and will do whatever we can and whatever resources that we need to make sure that these people in their lives come back together. Thank you.
We will continue to share updates on all our social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter. Follow Napa County local government on those. We, as the sheriff mentioned, we are sending information out through Nixle. If you
text your zip code. The primary zip code is 94558 for these incidents to 888-777. You will be receiving the emergency center's Nixle messages. We are coordinating information with our media partners, and you may do so through our PIO system in place. For our Napa County employees, we're asking all our Napa County employees to check in with their supervisors of whether they're needed to respond to work today. CHP is advising road closures, and we would like to adhere to that as much as possible. Our media and community line is 707-253-4501. Again, all schools are closed. Those closures are Napa Valley College, Napa Valley Unified School District, St. Helena Unified School District, Mountain Schools, Napa County Office of Education, and the Calistoga Unified School District are all closed today. That concludes our press conference. That's all the information that we have at this moment, but the latest breaking news is that the governor has proclaimed a state of emergency for Napa, Sonoma, and Yuba counties, with more information to come. Thank you all very much.
Next briefing schedule?
All right, guys, so back in the newsroom here. Obviously a pretty dire situation in California. One of our, actually, you guys know him, weatherman Tucker Barnes. His mother lives in that area, and many people, numerous people were evacuated actually to get out of the Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino areas. So we're going to be following these wildfires, guys. It's a pretty serious thing, and we've been having some live sources come into us, and we actually just lost those couple of shots right now, but as we have them, we'll bring them to you live, and we're going to have some more live events and other stuff that's going on as they come to us today. But obviously, weather, a big part of the news today, the rain here, the snow in Denver, and the wildfires in California. So we'll be following them all day. We'll have some other faces from the newsroom come and join us on some other stories and bring you the latest. If you're joining us on YouTube, welcome to the show, and thanks for hanging out on this Monday, Columbus Day. Maybe you're off work, maybe you are not, but either way, thanks for coming on the stream with us, and you can join us on the chat and comment along with us throughout the day. We're going to go back to just a live shot of Denver, guys, where it's snowy in Mile High City. And this weather is just going crazy in mid-October. I was just in New England this weekend, and it was super hot and humid one day, and then chilly and rainy the next day. Very odd for New England fall weather. So it's been a really interesting month so far. But again, happy Columbus Day, guys, if you're hanging out with us here in the digital newsroom at Fox 5 DC. Here's a live look at Denver, Colorado in the snow. Come out. All right, guys, back in the newsroom with Tom Fitzgerald.
Hi.
Hey, so happy to have him on. I guess we just switched over. We're talking about weather all morning, but we did show you the really, really cool U.S. Army annual meeting and convention at the convention center here in D.C. We played it out, and here's a shot of it. And
these are all of the different uniforms that the United States Army has worn over the years.
Yeah, this was the beginning of it when they showed.
Yeah, and you know, this is actually an office of the United States Army, and basically what they do is they maintain exact, in some cases, the actual uniforms. You can see, you know, on the left there, you see some of those people going back to the Spanish-American War, obviously the Revolution, the year of 1812, in through Grenada, early 80s, Vietnam, of course, World War II, Korea. It's something to look at because, you know, it's the nation's history right there.
Really cool, yeah. I want to mention, too, we're not going to bring up the volume on this, but I wanted to get some commentary here from Tom because he's somewhat connected to this annual event. And also, if you do want to see it in full, we just played it out with the sound on our stream. So when the stream stops, you can go back and check that out. But Tom, you're familiar.
Well, this one appears to be a portion of a program that the United States Army has done for a number of years called the Spirit of America, which is it's really remarkable if you ever get a chance to see it if it comes to your town. Basically, what it is it tells the story of the United States Army and from its foundings and you know, the thread that has run throughout the fabric of this country. And, you know, in a lot of ways, when you tell the story of the United States Army, you're telling the story of the United States. So they kind of go very much hand in hand. But I believe that these are soldiers from the old guard here in Washington, D.C. They are based at U.S. Army's Fort Myer and Fort McNair. These are a lot of the ceremonial units that you'll see during presidential inaugurations, during presidential funerals. The U.S. Army Band is a part of this. The U.S. Army Drill Team, the team that spins the M1 rifles with precision, and they were able to kind of do the acrobatic moves with the rifles, and I don't know how they do it, but they do it, and they're always perfect.
I know, it's amazing.
And also the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier Guards.
Oh, okay.
Tomb Guards are also a part of this.
Who are so
as
interesting.
well,
That's such a distinguished role.
it's a very solemn responsibility, and the detail down to the tiniest piece of lint on their uniforms that they go through with each other, and the training that you need to go through to get that Tomb Guard badge is remarkable.
Wow.
And you know, that's what's on display here as part of this today. This is the Association of the United States Army. It's meeting in Washington today.
Yeah, so this played out earlier. This happened early this morning. We rolled on it just to play it back with you guys. But I want to talk about some other topics too. Tom, we're talking about some of the hot political topics of the day, including...
It's a little bit of a slow day today because Columbus.
Well, it is Columbus Day. Yeah.
The House and the Senate are not in session today, so there's no hearings going on today. And you know, a lot of the business of the town today is kind of, you can see it in the streets, you know, when you're driving around.
Oh yeah, it's quieter.
Not quite as busy as it is.
But is Columbus Day a story in itself, though? Is that this is sort of a topic that's been tossed around?
It's a holiday that's been under attack for, you know, a growing number of years now. That there are people who contend that Christopher Columbus, in their view, is a historical figure that should not be celebrated. Italian Americans point to this day as a day of their own identity and pride. As you know, I know I got a name like Fitzgerald, but I'm half Italian.
He's half. I'm half too.
And I can tell you, growing up with my grandparents, Columbus Day was a day that has been taken very, very seriously by Italian Americans. Christopher Columbus, you know, amongst Italian Americans, is somebody that is often pointed to with a great deal of pride in the fact that, you know, the role he played in opening up the New World to, you know, the colonization. However, there are people in recent years who have challenged that view, and they view him as somebody who should not be celebrated, somebody who should not be you know, canonized in statues, and recently we have had incidents where people are actually doing physical damage to Christopher Columbus statues. In fact, the oldest statue to Christopher Columbus in the United States was located up in Baltimore. It's nearly 200 years old, and it was severely vandalized a couple of weeks ago.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that was the oldest.
By somebody who took a sledgehammer to it and then posted that video on social media.
Yes.
Which to a lot of Italian Americans, you know, this is a, you know, there's elements to it that are very different from the Confederate argument. You know, what goes on, you know, one of the arguments with the Confederate statues is that this is a army that fought against the United States and fought and killed United States soldiers. The people who are opposed to the Christopher Columbus statues have been making the argument, well, that he played a role in the elimination of indigenous people, and that they say he has blood on his hands. You talk to somebody, you know, from the opposite viewpoint of that debate, and they will tell you the exact opposite, that, you know, Christopher Columbus is somebody who opened up America, you know, eventually, you know, established the New World, which eventually led to the establishment hundreds of years later of the colonies and then the United States. And then the United States then grew into this place where people from around the world could come. So if you do not have Christopher Columbus,
we wouldn't
hundreds
have had.
of years later do not have the United States. If you do not have the United States, you do not have this nation's history, which allows people from around the world to now come here and seek refuge and asylum. So if you are in favor of immigration, if you're in favor of refuge, well, Christopher Columbus then probably played a role in allowing the United States to exist to allow that to happen. So it's one of the difficulties in these arguments is that when you really start drilling down onto where they go, a lot of times, especially like in the argument over Christopher Columbus, they wind up turning on their own heads because, you know, while people can have very strong feelings about, you know, the plight of Native Americans and the plight of indigenous people here, there is also another side to these arguments that sometimes is getting lost in the shuffle in 2017 in these rush to kind of, you know, do away with these monuments, do away with these statues. And
so much of that right now.
Elements of history. All history is constantly up for review.
Right.
That's just been the one constant through time, that we are constantly, you know, looking back at our history and trying to understand in modern times what that meant. But no one's ever been successful in erasing history. You know, there still to this day is in Germany laws which prevent the memorialization of some of the Nazi regime. That didn't make the history of that go away, though.
Right.
So you could get rid of all of the statues, and you could get rid of all of the monuments. You still have to struggle with that history, and you still have to come up with a way to contextualize that and bring it into your life and make your own world better. Because just knocking down a statue or getting rid of a memorial doesn't really solve the issue which caused you to oppose it in the first place.
So there's the knocking down of memorials too, but also the rumblings and talks, and in one case, Los Angeles has actually happened, the changing possibly of the name of this holiday, of what it's observed as.
Well, they've been calling it, some cities have been calling it Indigenous Peoples Day, which is a bit of a mouthful. But the idea is that why are, you know, this is their viewpoint, why are we celebrating Christopher Columbus when they say we should be celebrating the people who are already living here, the indigenous people, that they should get the same kind of recognition that Christopher Columbus has gotten. Now, I've heard other arguments where people have said you should call it something like First Contact Day.
I see.
Makes it a little more of an even plane, where it's you have Columbus and his explorers and the indigenous people making first contact with each other. That puts them on an indigenous plane, and there is an argument to be made that Indigenous Peoples Day ignores the contribution of Christopher Columbus in opening up this place,
giving him the praise and the honor. And
yeah, so you know the argument would go that a First Contact Day would be, you know, but it's the struggle of all of these arguments today is that the minute you start kind of focusing on one person's perspective, then the other person starts to feel that their viewpoint is diminished. You know, whenever you step into these arguments, you have to really kind of almost be aware of the fact that there are so many different viewpoints and angles and offense that can be taken and not taken these days, that it's difficult to see right now how we agree on just about anything these days, because everybody seems to have a different take on just about everything.
You're so right, though. Columbus Day, everything we cover, I mean, it's just how it is. You're going to think what you want to think, and that's how it is.
Well, you know, in respect to the viewpoint, you know, from Italian Americans, I can say that, you know, if there was some change to, and let's be honest, for years and years and years, my whole life, you know, outside of the fact that I had Italian relatives, Columbus Day typically was a day that the department stores just used to plug sales.
We were off school.
There was really never any serious discussion about the implications of Christopher Columbus's journeys, his setbacks. You know, if you read history on what happened with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, it was a horrible trip. The fact that they survived is testament to their, to their ability to kind of navigate where they wound up. However, if we are going to have a new definition of Columbus Day, and if we are going to have a new definition of what this day means, maybe it's not such a bad thing that it stops being about department store sales, and that we actually maybe have a conversation about not only the contributions that Italian Americans have made to this country, and they are a group that has been put upon with horrible stereotypes in the entertainment industry over the years, whether it be depictions of organized crime, or whether it's been depictions of domestic violence, or all kinds of things. You look at a lot of the depictions that have been put on of Italian Americans, they've not been that flattering. My grandfather did not care for the Godfather movies. There was only one part of it that he ever used to say was accurate.
Which part? We gotta know.
The scene of The Godfather Part 2 where a young Vito Corleone will go to an opera, a very small opera, and people didn't have televisions back then. That's what they did. But he said that part was very accurate. However, he goes, the violence and the murder and the organized crime that you saw in that film, he felt kind of put a blanket over all Italian Americans, and that's why when Columbus Day came around, it was a day that Italian Americans could kind of point to with pride, and feel very strongly about, because they a lot of Italian Americans have felt very put upon with the stereotypes that have been labeled against our ethnic group.
I knew you were going to say it was a flashback.
Again, I know my name is Fitzgerald, but
he's half. But so am I. And so anecdotally, actually, I didn't even. It was sort of swept under the rug to me that it was Cristoforo Colombo, that he was an Italian explorer, and he met the King of Spain, and then
he had to go to Spain to get the contract,
and so you learn all that, and then it kind of gets forgotten, and then it wasn't until, honestly, to admit, high school that I sort of was learning the Italian language and learned about him, and then it became more of like this is Italian.
It's nothing everybody, you
don't think
school,
about it.
You study seriously, you get poem.
Right.
Columbus, 1492, sailed the ocean blue. But that's not history.
And the boats,
it's a poem,
which were actually, like you said, a tumultuous, crazy ride.
They lost most of the ships.
The people, the sickness,
and the actual story of it is a fascinating story. However, in 2017, things kind of get put through the social media ringer now, and I don't know if there's many parts of our history these days that are not open to this kind of reinterpretation. You would think there were some things we could all agree on, but this is an argument that's been going on, at least in my memory, for at least 2 decades now. This argument over what Columbus Day should be, what we should be honoring and recognizing when Columbus Day arrives. I will tell you, in reality of 2017, as I said at the top of this, Congress is not in today.
Right.
A lot of banks are
Quiet
closed.
Day, right.
So it is still marked. It is still observed. However, there is this concern moving forward that people will try to use this day to either damage or vandalize these statues that are across the country, or in some other way, take away from this day that to so many Italian Americans is important, and is the one day a year they really feel recognition.
Interesting. I didn't know that about the Baltimore statue either. I always learned some new little fact from you. Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
It was social media. It was put out on social media. The vandalism.
I believe the person who did it announced that they were going to do it, and then recorded it, and then posted the video on social media.
So it was like a performance. It was a thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, yeah, he actually did it.
And, and then put it up.
And there are a number of different versions of the argument going on all over the country. There's a Christopher Columbus statue in front of Union Station here in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
of course,
that's
Columbus
right.
Circle down in New York City.
Yep.
So, one thing I do know in New York recently, they had said that they are not going to change the name of Columbus Circle.
New York said that.
But this isn't going away.
Right.
And it'll be, I'm sure, a topic of conversation again, when October rolls around next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, if you are just joining us, welcome to the stream. We're at Fox 5 Live. You're looking at a live look inside our digital newsroom during the day here on this Monday, Columbus Day. So some of you might be off work or not, but we're here working. And this is Tom Fitzgerald.
There's no day off here.
No days off. He joins us often to kind of chat hot topics and politics of the day. So let us know your comments if you have thoughts on the whole Columbus Day thing. And I know it's definitely a talker, and it's going on throughout the nation, really, as we observe today as Columbus Day. But let's switch gears a little bit. Another thing that happened over the weekend, this is totally switching topics, but back to politics. Vice President Pence was at a Colts game in Indy.
Yeah, this was interesting and odd in a couple of ways because Peyton, you gotta go back to why they were there.
It's
Peyton Manning, who was the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts for years before he eventually parted company with him and then went to the Denver Broncos and won another Super Bowl and retired. Peyton Manning, is synonymous with the city of Indianapolis and Colt football in Indianapolis in its Indianapolis era. I'm old enough to remember when they were the Baltimore Colts.
I knew they were, but I didn't.
So they've been having a number of big celebrations over the weekend for Peyton Manning. One of them was the unveiling of a statue. David Letterman was there and spoke.
Oh, cool.
I didn't
know that.
He was hysterical.
You watch it? Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine was there and posted a video to Facebook, and it was Letterman was hysterical.
Because he's an Indy guy. That's his whole thing.
He's from Muncie.
Oh.
He's from Muncie, Indiana, which is a small town in Indiana. When you live in Muncie, Indianapolis, was the larger city, but I believe he had worked in television markets on his way up. Through the business.
I know him.
But so that was kind of the focus of the weekend in Indianapolis. The focus was on Peyton Manning, honoring him and unveiling the statue and bringing him back to Indianapolis. That changed on game day.
To what the focus was.
Yeah, because this was a game between the 49ers and the Colts. Now, as you know, former quarterback Colin Kaepernick was the one who began what has now blossomed throughout the league of these protests of either kneeling or sitting or not standing during the national anthem. So Mike Pence, who's the former governor of Indiana, and his wife Karen Pence attended the game. During the national anthem, as we know, some players decided not to stand for the national anthem. The vice president did stand with his hand over his heart, as did the second lady of the United States, Karen Pence. At that point, vice president got up and left. They left. And the reason they left...
In the middle of the anthem, right? Or
no. They showed proper respect to the anthem, but at the conclusion of that, they left. Did not stay for the game. The reason for this, we soon learned, was I learned of this during a release from the vice president's office yesterday, was that he released a statement saying that he decided to leave because he did not feel that the players were honoring the national anthem and that he was not going to be part of anything that gave that kind of spotlight to something that he found disrespectful to the national anthem. So that was initially what we had thought was the beginning and maybe middle and end of this. However, then the president got involved. President Trump later went on Twitter and said in a tweet that in essence he had told the vice president to do this, which then raised questions ahead of time was
it planned?
What were we looking at there? Were we looking at a natural reaction of the Vice President of the United States to seeing what he perceived to be or was disrespect to the national anthem? Or were we seeing something that was pre-planned on the part of the White House and premeditated in an attempt to kind of grab this spotlight? Now, I will say, some of the ironies, and this kind of gets back to what we were talking about with the Columbus Day thing, some of the irony is that after the game, the players who spoke about this, who had taken part in the protest, seemed to take issue with the vice president for doing this. However, some of these are the same players who have been talking about this protest as their own exercise of their First Amendment rights, which in essence, that is what the vice president
Did.
himself
Right.
was doing, was exercising his First Amendment
It's really
rights.
interesting. It's getting all jumbled now. This is a succession of his tweets. You can kind of read from bottom to top. Some of them, vaguely just saying what you described.
Right. And if you cannot, if you are going to argue that you have the First Amendment right to kneel during the national anthem, then it'll also stand to reason that someone who does not agree with your protest of kneeling during the national anthem has the First Amendment right to get up and walk out of the building if they don't like what they're seeing. So, again, two different sides to one issue.
Right.
Neither side really seems willing or wanting to enter into any kind of dialogue about who is right and who is wrong, and that is where we are left now. But, the fact that they had decided to do this from the White House's perspective, probably not lost on anybody the attention that game was going to get because of Peyton Manning's being honored that weekend, and also the fact that it was the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
This
That's
this
relevance
was the
to that.
team. He's no longer part of the team anymore, but this was the team that Colin Kaepernick was on when this all began.
That's right. I actually didn't make that connection because I didn't see it. They were playing them. But interestingly, too, I know Steve mentioned this on air this morning, that some members of the White House press corps said it was known that he was going to be leaving the game early. So the question was it going to be then, and it was already premeditated, or was it later in the game? They're vague about it.
It stands to reason that this statement that went out from the vice president that you just had up there a second ago.
Yeah, we got the red.
I don't think that he probably dictated this in the car on the way down the road away from Lucas Stadium. It's,
Lucas Oil.
It's
Let's grab
probably, this was written in advance of any of that because they knew what they were about to walk into and they knew what they were about to see.
Right.
So
It just had to be written. This is the official statement. Let's bring it full screen. There it is. I'm going to bring this up. And he posted this on Twitter, and we got to keep it like that. All right.
So now the backlash on this is that apparently there was some reporting on from some verified NFL reporters last night that they have been hearing from NFL players that certain teams have been drafting rules which are going to require players to stand for the national anthem. Now, we do not know which teams those are. We do not know what players those are. We do not know if this is even going to happen. And if they did, based upon the fact of this progression that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, the NFL owners had seemed to stand in solidarity with the players a couple of weeks ago when many of them, Jerry Jones or whoever, went and locked arms with these players as they carried out this protest. A lot of these owners stood during the national anthem, but stood with locked arms. Are those same owners now going to take the next step and draft rules ordering their players to stand during the national anthem? That remains to be seen.
Right. We've been wondering this even for weeks. We were wondering if this would go on many Sundays, if this would be sort of a 1-2 week thing.
I don't think it's going away.
I don't think so either.
I don't think it's going away.
As what we've
because,
seen.
we're at now a tipping point in some ways because if you're one of the players who's been participating in this and you stop doing it, well, then what are you saying then? Are you saying
I'm done believing in
I've
that?
made my point?
Yeah.
Or are you saying I'm done believing in that? And I don't think that that's the message that they're trying to send. So in a way, you become a bit of a victim of your own success in gaining this kind of attention. How long do you continue to do it? At some point over the weekend, there was a flurry of conversation about a story that was put out by a CBS Sports reporter and then later clarified and pulled back about Colin Kaepernick somehow saying that if he were to return to an NFL team that he would
I saw that too. He had a press conference. He said he would stand.
Turned out that's not what he said.
It's not what he said. See, someone reported that. Okay. What did he say? It was vague.
I think it was a more nuanced, thoughtful conversation.
Sure.
That was played out in one tweet. But clearly the train started rolling down the tracks, and then the reporter who was involved in this had to go back out and clarify what was said and what was not said. The bottom line is this will continue as long as neither side talks to each other, or whether, you know, I don't know that they solve the civil rights police issues that they are protesting against before the Super Bowl. It seems unlikely that that would happen to bring this to a conclusion. So my guess, as we sit here right now, I guess after week 5, is this is going to continue.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing now. So. If they were to draft something, would it be an overarching NFL rule, or would it be individual teams? They're talking individual teams now.
From the reporting that I had seen from the verified reporters over the weekend was that they were hearing about this from players on individual teams. However, there did seem to be no reporting as to what teams these were. Now, there were some other stories that kind of pushed this to the side a little bit later on in the day. Obviously, there was a story that blew up on social media about one of the Miami Dolphins offensive line coaches allegedly, well, not allegedly, snorting some sort of white powder, I'll put it that way, on a video with some not safe for work language attached to it. And that kind of blew up as the big NFL story last night. I'm not so sure it's still not the biggest NFL story this morning.
I wonder. I think there was a press conference this morning, but I didn't catch it. There was something about it.
I believe the coach has left his position
his
with
post.
the Dolphins, and that was probably the right move to make, because this is not going to go away.
Right. So that did sort of overshadow, I guess, the Pence stuff-ish, a little bit.
Yeah, which, in regards to, if you read the post of the woman who released that on Facebook, she had made some comments about, some of the civil rights issues that have been circulating around the Anthem protest. Well, here comes that video. Here comes that post. And now nobody's talking about, Mike Pence last night. They're talking about this video.
Yeah.
So that, this is the news cycle we're in now, that everything, it's not a 24-hour cycle now. It's minute to minute, second to second. Any big story has the possibility of getting knocked off its block with the next post that comes up. So
we live in the digital world,
yeah,
social media.
We sure do.
So much.
Better or worse?
For better results, fast. We know that. I guess what else is going on today? Anything else?
That's what my grandfather used to look like in World War I.
Let's go back to this video.
Yeah.
Still got this. I got this scrolling on because we saw this earlier, but that's World War. That's World War I.
Well, yeah, my grandfather.
Yeah.
Both of my grandfathers were in World War I. And that's
very cool.
We have a very cool picture of my Italian grandfather in his uniform, wearing that exact uniform.
Really?
Yeah. He looks pretty sharp in it too.
I bet. That's a cool pic that you have. Yeah, this was a neat event. I actually really enjoyed watching this. Again, guys, you can catch it on our stream once it stops. You can go back to the beginning because we played it out with full volume, so in its entirety. But we have Fitz in the chair right now, just kind of chatting about the politics of the day. And
you want to take 5? We'll talk about bump stocks.
Oh yeah, we still have. You mean Mandalay Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go back to Vegas. We've been talking about this all of last week, of course.
This is a live shot of the Mandalay Bay
in Vegas. Oh, they might switch it back.
Yeah.
So the big news really today, we're watching the weather. We have the fires in California, the snow in Denver, rain here. It's been a wild day.
Real quick on the bump stocks, and you see they repaired some of the windows up there on the 30-second floor.
I saw that.
The end of last week, the NRA came out with a statement saying that they would be open to looking at legislation dealing with bump stocks, and the news out of that was, and here comes Sonoma,
back to the fires,
was that it was a surprise, because the NRA typically has kind of opposed that kind of legislation, and for the NRA to come out and say that they were open to it,
right?
A lot of people were interpreting as possibly a breakthrough in the ongoing stalemate debate over the gun control issue in the United States. So this is a tale of two locations.
Yep, there you go.
On the one side you've got Sonoma.
And I was hearing that vineyards were affected. This is wine country.
I was just talking to Tucker a little while ago.
Yeah.
And, so many people know Sonoma, California for obviously for its wine country, and that apparently this is either threatening or burning some of those vineyards right now. So that could have a, hopefully not, but this could have a devastating effect on the economy up there.
Totally, so bad.
To say about the lives that are in danger and the property that is in danger as well from this right now as well.
Yeah, definitely. But back to that issue, the bump stocks and whatnot in Vegas. What sort of has become of that now? I saw the NRA statement. Now where are we at? They're still sort of investigating this whole thing.
Well,
still trying to find motive.
Where we are right now
guns.
Is not that much farther away, sadly, from where we were a week ago.
Yeah.
We still do not know Stephen Paddock's motivation for this. We hear stories that he had some anger issues on the line at Starbucks. We hear these stories about how he used to gamble a lot, that he made a lot of money in real estate, but
sent money over.
His, partner, his girlfriend, has returned to the United States. She was sent on a trip prior to the attack by him. It's been said that she was sent away to protect her in some way. That apparently, through her attorney, has made statements, and her family has made statements that she did not know or have any prior knowledge of this attack. But for the largest mass murder, largest shooting in U.S. history, that we're a week into this now, we still do not know the motive in this, is confounding in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's unlikely, right?
I had covered Virginia Tech, which is still the largest.
The next largest from this. Or one of Orlando might be up there.
They're all horrible.
I know.
The ranking of them has almost become kind of tiresome in a way. They're all horrible, but we know what just happened in Las Vegas last week. 59 people is the largest number of people who was killed in a mass shooting in the United States. However, when we had covered Virginia Tech, when I was down there,
you went down
the
for
day
this.
It happened.
Yeah.
We were able fairly quickly to start getting a picture of Sung Hee Cho, the shooter in that, and it eventually, accumulated 24 hours later with the release of a videotape that he had made.
That's right.
Explaining his motivation and explaining. I don't know that anybody will ever understand why he did that, but explaining his reasons, and it was a chilling piece of evidence that was released just hours, a day later after the attack. He had mailed a videotape to NBC News.
Yes.
We're talking about a window. We were hearing in all of their news conference still seem to say they are working on that.
Right.
And
there were rumblings of a note or letter, but nothing was ever confirmed or talked about.
After a week, you would think that the police, if they did have something to say on that, would have said it by now.
To possibly
know. They continue to kind of work on this. But the amount of weaponry he had and the amount of planning he had to undergo to commit this, one of the dangers of a vacuum of information is that in this day and age, in 2017, people try to fill that vacuum with other stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there right now that is being kind of put out there as statement of fact, which is in fact made up. A lot of these things that people are saying on Facebook and Twitter about what this was or was not is pure invention because of the lack of hard evidence right now, or hard statements from law enforcement investigators about what they have here. So it's one of the dangers when we go online and we read these stories and we see these things. We really kind of need to take a deep breath and try to separate fact from fiction, because there is some fiction that is starting to circulate out there about what exactly was involved in all
There is. Even the first day or the first few hours, I remember there were sites that were debunking things that were out there that the media ran with, or people or blogs, maybe personal people, blogs ran with, but it was like, don't believe everything you see. So
well, there's an old rule in journalism that if your mother tells you she loves you, get two other sources. And
such a journalist.
We used to laugh about that. I remember when I was in school.
Yeah.
But, these days more than ever, it's those are words to live by, because there's such a flood of information out there that once in a while a deep breath can really save you from making a really bad mistake.
Yeah, and you're right. We haven't really heard deep, press conferences from police about new information in the past few days. So interesting that we had that bump shot just now that just came up live on our source, but I just haven't. We haven't seen anything new.
Well,
so.
I mean, typically in these kinds of investigations, what you've got going on right now is they're kind of fanning out back through those gun purchases, go back through those sales, talk to everybody he talked to. Were there any odd conversations? Did he say anything? Did he indicate in any way why or why he was purchasing these types of weapons? Did he indicate in any way what he intended to do with them? And that's not quick work, especially when you're talking about the amount of weaponry he had amassed. Now, what we do know in Las Vegas is that this has led to some changes as far as some of the security procedures in place. One of the guests on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace yesterday was Steve Wynn, who was,
from the Wynn Hotels?
Yes. Magnate throughout Las Vegas.
Okay.
For years, he had owned hotels in Atlantic City, New Jersey as well, too. And what Steve Wynn said yesterday was very interesting in that he had implemented stricter security policies in his own hotels 3 years ago, because when he looked at Las Vegas, he saw it as a sitting target.
Really?
And it's typical having, when I went to the Wynn Hotel, there was security at the door. You cannot just waltz in there. They have a no firearm policy. At his, and he talked at length about this yesterday. And the security that he says not only is in place at his facilities, but needs to be put in place at other facilities throughout Las Vegas.
Very interesting. So we had something to say about security, his hotel versus some of the others. Right. My goodness. Well, I'm sure more details to come on that as we see anything that's coming in. We'll bring that to you guys live. And then, Tom, you're working on some other stuff today? Or?
We're going to be looking at the president's proposals on immigration. Apparently, last night, the White House came out with what they said was the framework of the deal that they want to work on. And basically, went to the White House a couple of weeks ago, and apparently they had come out saying they had this deal in place. This is very much not that deal.
Yeah.
So when they finally do get back to work, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that winds up getting tied to each other, the border wall and DACA protection.
Interesting. So it's becoming a little more of a compromise.
Well, and some of it's political necessity for the White House as well, too. Remember, we've talked to a lot of conservative hardliners that say any deal, first of all, they don't want DACA extended. But they said, however, any deal on DACA has to include the border protection wall, because that is what the president ran for. I mean, it was kind of the centerpiece of his entire presentation on the very first day of his campaign. So for the White House to not fight for that border wall really would have risked losing a lot of his core base, especially amongst hardline conservative immigration proponents. So we'll have to see.
Good insight. Awesome. Well, thanks, Tom, for joining.
Well, thanks. Enjoy your day.
Always learning some new facts and trivia.
Enjoy your Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day.
And Joe's saying, wrap it up, wrap it up.
All right, take care.
Yeah, whatever you guys call it. Yeah, let us know, guys, what you guys think of that whole topic. We just had a lot of different topics that we just chatted about. You're looking at our digital newsroom, guys, inside Fox 5 DC. Whether you're working today or not, if you're celebrating Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, maybe you are in Los Angeles, that's where they're calling it. I know I was there a couple weekends ago. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying your day. It's a rainy day here in DC. And like I said, a lot of the stuff we're looking at today is weather, the severe wildfires that are spreading in California, throughout wine country. Really sad stuff. I really am hoping that there isn't too much damage to people, of course, and then businesses there. I know some animals have had to be sort of left and or evacuated, some horses and whatnot. We've been hearing some stories from people that we know who know people in that area, which is in somewhat dire straits right now. But we're kind of following weather and also just other interesting live events that are happening here in DC. Right now, not too much coming in, But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know where you're watching from and what you think. If you have any thoughts or questions throughout, you can always chat me up on the stream. We're here on YouTube for you throughout the day, throughout the middle of the day here. We'll probably go into the early afternoon, and we'll see what we have next. So again, I'm Molly Nevola here in the newsroom. Just back from a weekend in New England, where it was really interesting weather, hot and then cold. I was there for a friend's engagement party and then came back yesterday. So quick weekend away, but back to DC now, where the Nats play in Game 3 of the ALDS, coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. 4:08, I think, is the official time. So I'll be trying to check into that too. So a lot of cool sports stuff coming out of the district these days. All right, guys, we'll give you back to, we're gonna go back to this really cool Army event that Fitz gave us a little more background on. It starts really interestingly with a performance, some poetry, some theatrics to kind of set the tone, and then Secretary of Defense James Mattis delivers the keynote remarks at the convention center here in Washington. So this happened this morning. If you have other interesting video that's coming out, we'll make sure we double box it with some of the fire footage so you can enjoy looking at that and just stay up to date with that. And as we have any breaking news about that, any press conferences or more regarding what's actually going on in Northern California, we'll bring that to you as well. All right, guys, so check this out from earlier today. I'm going to double box this shot to keep you relevant with what's going on. We'll be back in the newsroom in just a little bit.
Sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
American soldiers stood side by side with our allies to bring about victory in the Great War. Sergeant Alvin York, one of America's outstanding soldiers and recipient of the Medal of Honor, reflected on what was accomplished.
There are those who ask, you fought to make the world safe for democracy. What did it get you? Well, let me answer them now. It's not important what I got personally, but what we, as a nation and an army, achieved.
They've built here.
And Rosendo says that his friend and his family are physically doing okay.
And we want to get back to Amy. Let's go ahead and check in with her, who has been there in Santa Rosa for us all morning long, speaking to folks like Rosendo. Amy, how does it look now? We still see fire and flames behind you. You know, when I heard Mike Nico say the sun is out now, I had to look at my watch and the sky. You would not know that it is daytime here. It is still, it's so overcast from all the smoke. It just feels like 5 p.m., you know, dusk and overcast. You would never know that it's mid-morning. Look how hazy it is here. Just, there's still so much smoke in this area, still so much burning. We are in the Coffee Park neighborhood, which was devastated. I've had people asking me for streets on Twitter. Cashew is gone. All the homes are gone. Sweet gum is gone. Dogwood is gone. Let me go look. Give me 1 second to walk down here to this one block. This is where things do look okay, and like some homes made it. I've got a tree blocking the name of the street. Banyan. Right at Banyan is where some...
I heed the call of duty, then I run into the fight, 'cause I...
The enemy and identify his vulnerabilities, all while connecting our forces and enabling precision operations.
I am a cyber warrior. I defend, attack, and exploit the cyber domain to set the theater, maintain our Army's technological advantage, and to win in the crucible of battle. I enable mission command, provide ground commanders unique capabilities to achieve military effects, opening windows of opportunity across all domains. When called upon, I defend our nation from cyber threats and strike the enemy through cyberspace. I can be in the field or thousands of miles away, but the effects I achieve are formidable.
I integrate fires and effects, leveraging the advantages created by my space and cyber comrades. I combine the massive capacities of our maritime, air, and land-based capabilities to take control of these domains and unleash the powers of our joint forces to degrade the enemy and set the conditions for their defeat.
We are our nation's force of decisive action. When the time is right, we lead the assault. We seize, retain, and exploit the initiative to close with and destroy the enemies of our nation. in close combat. This is multi-domain battle.
I'm Staff Sergeant Riskin from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am privileged to lead the soldiers of our Army who will carry us to victory against any adversary. I ask all Army active duty soldiers, retirees, veterans, and Army family members to rise and join me in our Soldier's Creed. I am an American soldier. I am a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values. I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills. I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself. I am an expert and I am a professional. I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the enemies of the United States of America in close combat. I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life. I am an American soldier.
I'm a soldier, ready and strong. I'll lead you through the battle and I'll lead you home. I'm a soldier, ready for the fight. I stand for freedom, the American right. I'm a soldier, ready and strong. Lead you through the battle and I'll lead you home. I'm a soldier, ready for the fight. I stand for freedom, the American right. I'm a soldier.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and join us in singing the Army Song.
March along, sing a song with the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. We're the army and proudly proclaim. Left and right, on the right, and to raise the nation's light. Let the army go strolling along. Proud of all we have done, right until the battle's won. Let the army go strolling along. Then it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Proud of the men, it's on its road. For wherever we go, you will always know. Let the army go strolling along.
Please be seated.
If that doesn't get you going, you got a pretty serious problem, I think. Secretary Mattis, Secretary McCarthy, General Milley, General Lingell, Sergeant Major Army Daly, and so many more distinguished guests. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you allow me to recognize a few distinguished guests. We're blessed this morning to have several former chiefs of staff of the Army. General Zvano, General Reimer, General Sullivan, General Shinseki, please, if you would, let us thank you for your long service. And I'll pick on one of that august group of four. Some of you may have met General Sullivan before. He has a bit of a relationship with the Association of the United States Army, and some of you may have heard some great personal news. General Sullivan is engaged to be married. He says that's best. Second best would be if the Red Sox would get back on track. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out. We're also honored this morning to have a number of former Sergeants Major of the Army. Sergeant Major of the Army Tilley, Preston, and Chandler are also with us. Gentlemen, please. A special thanks this morning to Major General Mike Howard, Commanding General of the Military District of Washington, Colonel Esch, and the men and women of the United States Army Band and Chorus. Thank you all so very, very much for a wonderful opening ceremony. Two other groups just to mention, to thank you for your presence. The Secretary of the Army appoints civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army who represent our Army across the land. And if I could ask the civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army, please stand and let us thank you for your long service. Thank you all so very much. This year we have more than 70 nations represented at the Association of the United States Army's annual meetings. If I may ask all of our international partners to rise and let us thank you for your partnership, your friendship, and your spirit of cooperation with the United States and the United States Army. Our international partners, please. One of the things you learn pretty early on is this soldier in business is a team sport, and it's great to have teammates like this. So thank you all very, very much. I'm honored now to introduce our keynote speaker for the 2017 annual meeting of the Association of the United States Army. You know him. He's well known to all. He's well known internationally. I had the privilege of serving alongside him. And if you ask me to define our keynote speaker with one word, I would simply choose patriot, because that's what he is at his very core. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Jim Mattis.
Thank you. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, General Ham, old friend of many years. It's an absolute delight to be here with you all. And I do appreciate being invited to something like this. I can probably find no place in Washington, D.C. today that I feel more at home than here amongst all of you. Acting Secretary McCarthy, we first met each other in those very uncertain days after 9/11 in Afghanistan, and we've served together for many years after that. Thank you for coming back to the colors, sir. It's a pleasure to serve with you once again. General Milley, we've served together. We know each other over many years. You have the DNA of Iwo Jima in your veins. You bleed red, white, and blue. And the Army could not be in better hands right now. Sergeant Major Daly, besides deciding to go out on the obstacle course this morning, that Army 10-miler yesterday, I guess, was just your warm-up for it this morning. So in the truest traditions of Army NCOs, where you lead from up front and put yourself in difficult circumstances voluntarily, thank you for your leadership as well. After that presentation, I'm going down to the recruiting office after I'm going to sign up for another 40 years, I guarantee you. But it was also something to remind us about the priorities that Secretary McCarthy, General Milley have made very clear in their time in office, and that is for readiness. And we will talk more about that, but I'm going to be very pleased to take some questions at the end of this. And so let's see if I can close the gap between a Secretary and we are co-equal, and that is one thing that the American forces have always had in their ranks, a sense of co-equal devotion. So I'm honored to be here with you today, you who hold the line in this world. And I want to mention something about the veterans. In my talks with soldiers on the front lines, I've just returned from Afghanistan a few days ago, the only thing I think they would ever fear is letting down you and the legacy that you bequeath to them. Because they know, based on what you've been through, that they can do the job, because it can be nothing worse than what you faced in your most difficult days. And that builds their confidence. And especially from me, on a personal level, a thank you to the Vietnam veterans who stayed in, as we heard in the presentation this morning, stayed in the Army, rebuilt the Army. They were the veterans who raised me in the Marine Corps and made me the Marine I was. So to all veterans, and especially the Vietnam veterans, you have my deepest affection for what you committed to our country. Thank you. Thanks very much. To our Medal of Honor winner, and to all of you who have been decorated and recognized for valor in combat, I just want to say to you, in great deeds something abides. Regardless of which war you earned the respect of your fellow warriors, your example of courage echoes today down through our ranks. To our Gold Star families who join us here today, as General Chamberlain of the 20th Maine said years after the Civil War, we pray daily to be worthy of your sacrifice. Thank you. As your Secretary of Defense, I am honored to join you. I'm grateful to serve once again alongside soldiers of the greatest army, the most trusted army on earth. To serve once again among the disciplined, ethical, capable, high-spirited soldiers whose character I have seen rise to every occasion in the worst possible circumstances. Soldiers who are always at their best when the times are at their worst. Soldiers who General George Washington would be proud of. For 242 years now, you have set the standard. For you are the soldier descendants today of ragged Continentals who left bloody footprints at Valley Forge. You who from Lexington to Bastogne to the Korengal, generation after generation, you have carried our flag in your hearts and the Patriot's fire in your belly. A fire that keeps alive our experiment that we call America, an experiment to determine if a government of the people, by the people, and for the people can long survive. A united army, united in commitment that stands as a model for our fellow citizens of what Americans who stand united can do. And our Army's ranks today are filled with willing, high-quality patriots, all volunteers. And again, I am very proud to serve with you. The international situation is the most complex and demanding that I have seen in all my years of service, and that's over 4 decades. In the Mideast, terrorists continue to conduct murder and mayhem despite significant and accelerating losses. One state sponsor of terror in the Mideast cannot hide behind its nation-state status, while in effect it is actually a destabilizing revolutionary regime. In Europe, for the first time since World War II, we've seen national borders changed by the force of arms, as one country proved willing to ignore international law to exercise a veto authority over its neighbors' rights to make decisions in the economic, diplomatic, and security domains. In the Pacific, we've seen North Korean provocations threatening regional and even global peace, despite universal condemnation by the United Nations. So this is the reality that faces our Department of Defense and our like-minded allies, and we must have militaries fit for their purpose, fit for their time, in these days of emerging challenges. For these challenges include new domains of conflict in space and in cyberspace, and in ways that involve deniable attacks even on our democratic processes. Your Department of Defense is adapting because we do not want to be dominant and at the same time irrelevant. And I offer this problem statement for what must guide our efforts. How do we maintain a safe and effective nuclear deterrent so these weapons are never used and our non-proliferation efforts can be recharged? Second, how to maintain a decisive conventional force at the same time as that nuclear deterrent, one that will include space and cyberspace capability to deter war or end it decisively if conflict occurs. And third, we must at the same time maintain an irregular capability so we can fight across the spectrum of conflict. This is our problem statement: how to maintain a safe and secure nuclear deterrent and maintain a decisive conventional force that can also fight irregular warfare. Our department has 3 lines of effort to address these issues. First, everything we must do must contribute to the increased lethality of our military. We must never lose sight of the fact that we have no God-given right to victory on the battlefield. Secretary McCarthy and General Milley are examining every personnel policy, our training time, our organization, and more to ensure they contribute to make us the most lethal joint force in the world. Even as our competitive edge over our foes and adversaries decreases due to budgetary confusion in this town and the budget caps. I am among the majority in this country that believes our nation can afford survival, and I want the Congress back in the driver's seat of budget decisions, not in the spectator's seat of automatic cuts. I have great confidence in the U.S. Congress, but I have no confidence in automatic mathematical budget cuts. Second line of effort, we are following the example of the greatest generation coming home from the tragedy of World War II and who looked around and they said, "What a crummy world." But we're part of it, whether or not we like it, and we're going to do something about it. And in that spirit, they build alliances and partnerships. In the same spirit today, we are strengthening alliances and building new partnerships, whether it be NATO, the counter-ISIS coalition, the 39 nations standing together in Afghanistan, and expanding friend and partner bonds in the Indo-Pacific region. Secretary of State Tillerson's Defeat ISIS coalition is only one example of what this looks like in practice. 69 nations banded together, plus 4 international organizations, the Arab League and NATO, the European Union and Interpol, all working in concert to defeat ISIS. But we also stand with our traditional allies as well as building new coalitions as we work together to defend our values. And to our allies here in this room today, I will tell you I had the honor of fighting many times for America. I never once fought in an all-American or solely American formation. It was always alongside allies. And I will just tell you, from NATO in Europe to the Pacific, the message to our allies is we are with you. Under Deputy Secretary of Defense Shanahan, our new Deputy Secretary and full of vigor, under him lies most of the continued effort for line of effort number 3, and that is the keen direction that he is helping to provide Secretary McCarthy and his fellow appointees to rework our business practices to gain full benefit from every dollar spent on defense. We are taking aggressive action to reform the way we do business and to gain and to hold the trust of the Congress and the American people that we are responsible stewards of the money allocated to us, and that it translates directly every dollar into the defense of our country and what we stand for. In all of this, the Army's importance is absolutely fundamental. Historian T.R. Fehrenbach once wrote, "You may fly over a nation forever, you may bomb it, atomize it, pulverize it, and wipe it clean of life. But if you desire to defend it, if you desire to protect it, if you desire to keep it for civilization, you must do this on the ground the way the Roman legions did, by putting your young men in the mud." I would only modify it today by saying, by putting your young men and women in the mud. And this is why the Army is so critical to our nation's security. I have by now grown rather remote from so many of you who man the ramparts, those of you who have looked past the hot political rhetoric to rally to our flag in the age of our high-quality, all-volunteer force. Yet while I no longer have the opportunity to get to know you personally, I do know your character. You could get out of the Army and make more money. You could get out of the Army and see more of your families. You could do any number of things, but you have the habit of putting others first, of putting your country first. At Antietam Battlefield Cemetery, the statue of a lone soldier stands atop a pillar, looking out across the graves of his fallen comrades. He's a private, and he is nicknamed Old Isaac, and it is inscribed on the pillar he stands above, quote, "Not for themselves, but for their country." Whether you spend a few years in your youth in the U.S. Army, ladies and gentlemen, or grow gray in the service to our beloved nation and its Constitution, rest assured you will always look back on the sacrifices of war, the demands of sergeants, and the frustrations of unpredictable deployments as the best years of your young lives. And even those of us denied the opportunity by our ranks to stand physically beside you every day, nonetheless, we join your fellow citizens in humbled awe of your willingness to sign a blank check payable to the American people, a blank check payable with your lives, to defend our revolutionary ideas enshrined in our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, putting freedom above all else. Now, if you want to know where I see modern war trending, I just ask that you reread General Milley's remarks from a year ago at this very convention. If you want a reminder of war's primitive, atavistic, and unrelenting nature, reread Fehrenbach's This Kind of War. If you want to see why I believe command and feedback must supplement our approach to command and control, read Rules of the Game by Gordon. If you want to know where I come from in terms of strategy, read The Future of Strategy by Colin Gray, the most near-faultless strategist alive today. And most importantly, when it comes to you willing and magnificent soldiers, those who from General George Washington to today carry our hopes on your shoulders, I say that you need only follow the Army creed we just all saw on the screen and recited. We need you at the top of your game in body, mind, and spirit. Physically, I salute Generals Milley and Frost's initiative to toughen the physical standards that they now have underway for the U.S. Army. I'm reminded that General Schwarzkopf, in the years after Vietnam, served under a Korean War veteran when he was a battalion commander, a brigade commander who insisted on tougher soldiers knowing what he had faced in the Korean War. Mentally, I want you to enhance your warfighting skills, assuming every week in the Army is a week to get better at integrating all Army and joint efforts to become more tactically cunning. So body and mind must be matched with the spirit. And spiritually, ladies and gentlemen, we need our soldiers to build your own and your comrades' in arms resilience to take combat tests of your character in stride in the most primitive environment on earth. Let me close with a reminder to today's troops through our veterans' eyes. I want to go back to World War II, the greatest generation. Today, as we sit here, there is a 91-year-old World War II combat veteran from Maine. The veteran is Mr. Richard Lincoln, and he's now living in a veteran's home in Maine. He and his 3 brothers all fought in World War II, and he is the last surviving one. Mr. Lincoln has a remarkable story. As a 17-year-old from a very small town of Wayne, Maine.
All right, guys, we're going to take it back into the newsroom here at Fox 5 Live. Thanks for joining us on the show, or maybe you're jumping into our stream kind of in and out today. But a lot of interesting stuff going on. We had Tom Fitzgerald in-house talking about the politics of the day. And then this really interesting, and I was just playing this out again, our Army annual meeting. This took place at the Convention Center in Mount Vernon area of D.C. You guys might be familiar. Graham, good to see you on the stream. Thanks for hanging out with us today. You have a live look into our newsroom. There it is. The middle of the day here on this Monday, Columbus Day. So if you are finding yourself off on this federal holiday, awesome. Hope you're having a great day on this rainy DC day, or maybe you're at work as normal as we are inside wherever you are and checking into our stream. But I want to go over to an interesting story, kind of to at least keep it kind of varied and interesting. We're speaking about the Cubs because Cubs are playing the Nationals in Chicago tonight at 4:08 Eastern Standard Time. That's the NLDS. They're in the division series. This is game 3. So we're looking forward to that, and I'm excited to hopefully check that out after I'm done with work today and check into the game, because series is tied at 1-1 and 1-1. And interestingly, relevant to the Cubs, did you guys know, or did you hear about this? A man is suing the MLB and the Cubs after going blind from a foul liner that went straight to his eye. He is blind now in his left eye. He lost sight permanently in that left eye after he was hit by the line drive foul ball in August. And this was at Wrigley Field in Chicago. So today, he sat down with people and his lawyers to talk about this. Kind of interesting to watch. Like I said, he's suing MLB and the Cubs because of this. We've seen this as a significant problem when that little girl, I think, was hit at the Yankees game, or I can't remember exactly which game it was, but these fans not exactly being perfectly protected when they're in the exact sort of range of getting hit by a foul ball. So anyway, this press conference happened just moments ago with his attorneys. Let's check out this.
Jumped on it. At the opportunity. It was a Tuesday, and they were playing the Pittsburgh Pirates. I was told that my seat was good, a good one, section 115, row 11, seat 107. I've only been to a few games, and to sit so close to the field with my family was really exciting for me. In the 5th inning, a foul ball came off the bat and struck me in the face. It crashed into my left eye. I felt the rush of pain, and I lost sight in that eye immediately. I was watching the game, but I had no chance to avoid it. It was just too fast. My son, who saw the ball coming, told me he didn't even have time to say anything or do anything. I was taken by ambulance to Illinois Masonic Hospital, where they immediately operated to try and save my eyesight. Doctors could not. I had multiple surgeries since that day and have been told that my eyesight in that eye is probably gone forever. I may even have to replace my eye with a prosthetic eye. Fans are the lifeblood of Major League Baseball. There should be nothing more important than their safety. This is a problem that Major League Baseball has known about for decades. Every year we hear stories about people who suffer serious injuries from foul balls. My life and the lives of many fans have been changed forever by Major League Baseball's failure to protect its fans. It's too late for me, but Major League Baseball must fix this, not after the playoffs, not next year, but now. Thank you.
So we're here again. Another story of a fan who is seriously injured because Major League Baseball will not do anything. They've issued recommendations 2 years ago, but every year we're hearing stories about some fan being injured. And it's time, as Jay says, this has to stop. It has to stop now. We can't have any more fans injured because of this. This is not new. They've known about it for a long time. And there's absolutely no reason that fans like Jay should be sitting here dealing with this. You heard from Jay that he was sitting in section 135, about this area here. At Wrigley Field, the fan safety netting ends about here. As I understand the 2015 recommendations from Major League Baseball, it's supposed to be at that point there, the closest edge of the dugout. And I think we've heard in the press that the Cubs are going to extend it 30 feet, which I think would then put them in line with the recommendation. I was in St. Louis last week, and I went to the game down there. And in St. Louis, the netting goes to the opposite edge of the dugouts, the farthest edge. If the Cubs had the same netting, Jay would not have been injured. We've given you all copies of the complaints that we filed, and in Japan, they have netting that goes foul pole to foul pole. My research has found that not just fans are asking for this, but the players themselves. There are players in Major League Baseball who will not let their family sit in unprotected areas. In 2007, 2012, as part of the collective bargaining agreement negotiations, one of the asks by the players was to extend the netting. They know how dangerous this is. They see firsthand how fast these balls are rocketed into the stands. You saw the reaction from Todd Frazier when he hit the ball in New York. The players want this, the fans want it, and I have not heard any rational reason why Major League Baseball hasn't done it. So with that, we'll take any questions you might have.
Just one clarification. In Jay's statement, it says section 115. It's 135.
135. Yeah, I'm sorry, 135.
Did I read it wrong?
No, we had a type wrong. Sorry, 135.
Jay, what are you seeking? What do you want to come out of this action that you're taking?
I don't want anybody to have to go through what I've been going through. It's just not right. I mean, those balls come so fast in certain hot zones, and yeah, and it broke my heart a week and a half after it happened to me to see that girl in New York. I really want more protective netting to make people safer in stands.
And for anybody who says, well, that's going to obscure our vision, we're not going to be able to really see the game as well if there's netting in front of us, what do you say to that?
I say the premium seats are behind the plate. There's netting there. I don't see it distorting people's view when you're looking at, from a pitcher's perspective, from a camera, and you're looking at the batter. You can't even see the netting. I mean, there's some camera that work there, but I don't think that's going to avoid it at all. I mean, you go to Little League games, everybody is behind the net, the steel fencing. Why would netting distort that view? I don't think it is, especially when you get to where I am now, with my life change, with one eye being gone. I mean, it's not worth it.
And talk a little bit about what you are facing currently with your condition and what you may face down the road. Talk about that again.
Can you speak more towards the microphone?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've had 3 surgeries. I had 5 broken bones in my face. My eye took a direct hit. It's not functioning. I had my sinus has a big hole in it that bleeds into my mouth to this day. I have at least 2 more surgeries I have to do. One to repair the orbit bone. They couldn't do that when they did the facial surgery because it's so close to the eye. And I have at least one more eye surgery. I went through a period where they determined the eye was completely dead, and I made the decision to remove the eye because of the sympathetic eye syndrome, which your immune system can attack your good eye in cases of trauma. The day I was having surgery, they tested me one more time, and I barely saw a little light peripherally. So it gave them, the surgeons, the sense that they should at least try to repair it. And so I've had a major surgery to go in and remove as much blood as possible, and to try and repair the retina and attach the retina and the pupil, and the lens was actually taken out because it was so damaged. I have at least one more of those surgeries to see if there's anything I can see, shadows or something of that nature.
But you may ultimately decide, you may ultimately have that eye removed.
Well, there's some things, I've had 20/20 vision my whole life. I've never knew much about people with eye problems, but I'm learning a lot that there is this sympathetic eye syndrome. There's also a dead eye pain that forces people to remove the eye because the pain gets so excruciating. Sympathetic eyes, layman's terms, what I said, your immune system attacks your good eye because it's not aware that these eyes are part of your body. They think it's a foreign object of some sort. And so those are all being weighed. I have a risk of it for the rest of my life to occur, but as the surgeries continue and my final outcome is more clear, I'll be making those decisions, yes.
Were you on a phone? I mean, were you doing anything to not paying attention to the game? Because that's an issue as well, as people are on their phones a lot. Were you?
No, I was not on my phone. I like the science of baseball, so I tend to watch the center fielder move as a pitch is made to see how they're trying to get a jump on a ball. I like watching the pitch speeds and things like that. We were watching the game, and it came on so fast you just couldn't react.
Jay's also, he played baseball in high school, so this is not somebody who's unable to react if it's a reasonably fast ball coming at him. He's dealt with baseball. He's played baseball his whole life. So,
Jay, what has this done to your career, your family, your overall life?
Well, I haven't done much since August 29th. I've had the trauma and 3 surgeries and trying to recover from some of that. I'm on short-term disability. I'm not sure, when I'll be able to return to work. That really is going to be determined upon the next couple of surgeries I have, I think. So it's, my family has given up a lot to take care of me because I have not been able to, take the medications and put all the eye drops in, and even for 4 weeks or so, I haven't even been able to make myself something to eat, to be honest with you. So it's really stopped them from doing a lot of what they normally would do as young adults.
What do you have to say to the Cubs? They have no plan at this moment to extend those nets past the dugout areas, even when they rebuild the dugouts next year.
I think there's obvious hot zones in a baseball field, specifically on a Major League Baseball diamond. I think that they're very well known where these hot spots are, and I think the Cubs, I would implore them to put up netting to protect those hot zones, because this is going to happen again if they don't. And it could be, my mind, I would think mine is pretty serious. Obviously, there's other serious injuries that could occur, and that's truly what I'm trying to do here, is to protect that for other people from having to go through what my family and I are going through.
Jay, are you going to watch the game tonight? And what would you say to fans who are going to the game tonight, particularly fans that are sitting in the sections near where you sat?
That's a great question. I would never sit in those seats again. I'd love to go to more games when I get better, but I'd be very particular where I sat. If there's people sitting in those areas, certainly you need to pay attention, but that's not going to work. I mean, I would, if I had a seat for today's game, honestly, I would probably be at home or in a bar across the street watching it on TV.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm in information technology management and in a leadership position in IT.
Can you describe your injuries one more time? So can you see out of your right eye at all, or?
Yes, my right eye I can see out of. I mean, it hasn't really adjusted to having one eye yet, so I do struggle with light changing, shadows, that kind of thing, going from light to shadows. There's a strain on it quite a bit, so I'm not sure. I have to talk more to the medical people once we get through some of these surgeries as to what can I expect with this one eye and how can I make it more functional such that I can get back to some normal life activities.
So Jay, you said you're a baseball fan, that you are a Cubs fan, does this change the way how you feel about baseball, or do you look at this as something that's 100% preventable, that it did not have to happen?
I think it's preventable. I had no idea that you were subjected to such missiles and the rate of speed that a ball can come into the stands. And I hesitated with the previous question because, you could be there with a mitt and you wouldn't have been able to react in time. I mean, they hit balls in the field to the players and they get hit. They take bad bounces, but because of the rate of speed, and they're looking right at it. In the stands, you're sitting behind the plate. You can't tell when the ball's contacted. You can't tell where the ball's going. You can't tell the rate of speed it's going until it's on top of you. I would, that's why I would not sit in those seats ever again. I think that it is preventable. If that net would have been up over the dugout, it never would have reached the stands.
Have you had any communication with the Major League Baseball or the Cubs team, and what has that been like? What has your relationship been since the accident?
I've reached out to the Cubs before we filed the case last week, and I talked to them, and I do believe that they want to do the right thing for Jay. They told us that they're willing to talk to us, and so I take that at good faith. I do think they care about their fans. So we'll see where that leads us. No communication yet with Major League Baseball.
Have you asked for a specific amount of money?
We have not. As part of our complaint, we allege that we're asking for more than $50,000, but that's a jurisdictional requirement here in Cook County. There's no specific number at this point.
Can you talk about medical costs to this point and what other costs you'll face in the future?
Yeah, I'm getting lots of bills. So in the future, I don't know. I suspect I'm going to have more than the 2 surgeries. I've been told I'm at a very high risk of retina detachment going into the future. I guess I went from, buying cheater glasses to read to, some serious eye costs into the rest of my life. Especially if some of these syndromes kick into gear, and I'm going to deal with that. I know I have to get prescription eyeglasses now to help this eye and to protect both eyes. Really, I can't just go get. You can't just go to a regular eye. I have to get the protective type that people that work in the trades would have going forward. There's things like that that are popping up that I'm not aware of.
What have your out-of-pocket medical costs been to this point?
I've been so out of it. I've been getting lots of envelopes and bills and emails, but I haven't really sat down and really looked at all that detail just yet.
Jay, after that incident in August, did the Cubs or Major League Baseball reach out to you first, or did you and your attorneys have to reach out to them?
I'm not aware of them reaching out to me. I was taken out in a stretcher and an ambulance. I know they've got my 2 sons' phone numbers. But for me, I've not had anybody that I'm aware of reach out to me. I've not been real responsive. I've not been really responsive to phones for the last 4 or 5 weeks though either.
Don't the ticket stubs have a warning? And if they do, how big a hurdle is that for you in filing a lawsuit?
Jay didn't have a ticket. Jay was allowed into the stadium through a family friend of the Cubs, so he did not have a ticket to the game.
If he had a ticket, could you have filed a lawsuit?
That would not have. I don't think that prevents lawsuits like this. I don't think anybody believes that some statement on the back of the ticket makes a difference to a guy like Jay or anybody else in avoiding the unavoidable injury that he suffered here.
So it's just a coincidence, I mean, that he didn't have a ticket, but you'd still be sitting here if he had a ticket.
Correct.
Jay, were you able to get a hand up, or I mean, was it just literally you're just in the same position?
Same position. I just got hit. I just went down.
I know you said your son saw it coming, but did you see it coming at all? The ball at you?
I never really saw it. No, it just hit me, and I wasn't unconscious, so I knew that I must have been hit by a ball. But like I said in my statement, my son saw it and couldn't react to say anything or to do anything by the time it hit me.
Did you have a feeling at that moment after you were struck by the ball? I mean, probably not. Whatever your mindset was at that moment, when you realized you were hit, did you also realize that this is probably really bad? Like it's not just a bruise?
I did. I mean, I knew this was probably pretty serious. The pain was excruciating, and I could tell it hit me in the eye. I worried that it hit my kids after it hit me. All those things were going through my head.
What else broke in your face?
My nose was broken. There's 3 bones in your face that connect to your jaw, and my jaw was out of line because those 3 bones broke. The orbit, the bone that essentially is the floor of your eye socket, actually has a big chip out of it. I mean, it was disintegrated in places. And that the sinus has a hole in it. So sinus cavity, there's a hole that to this day still is bleeding into my mouth that I've been told should heal at some point. But all in all, there were 5 bones in the sinus cavity and my eye. Was pretty decimated.
Adam, can you speak for a moment about what it was like that day?
Yeah, it was rough. Someone I've looked up to my whole life.
Or could we just have him, like, could you guys trade seats or something, just so that we can hear him better?
Do you want to just maybe, and why don't you just want to?
Sure, why don't you,
There you go. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was rough. Someone I looked up my whole life, I see the ball hitting him, hear the sound of him, and then him fall on me, bleeding all over my shoes. It was rough. Yeah.
Did you get that feeling right away that you knew it was? You saw the ball, right?
Yeah, I saw it as it was hitting him, and then I heard the sound, and then he fell on me. I caught him.
Could you describe those moments leading up to that, like the pitch, the speed of the ball coming off the bat, and the amount of time you really had to react?
There was no time. I mean, I literally turned and saw the ball. I was trying to put my hand up and hit him. It was less than a second.
So if the ball were to, you wouldn't even, are you saying you wouldn't have been able to stop it from hitting yourself?
No, I don't think so, honestly.
Were you sitting right next to him, sir?
Right next to him, yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions or? Okay.
Let me ask you, have you seen any kind of video of this incident?
There is. I think there's video on Twitter that I saw.
Have you studied it to find out, because it came out pretty quickly that the ball that hit the little girl was going over 100 miles an hour. Have you determined how fast this ball was traveling?
We have not. That'll be part of our investigation.
Do you know how many feet from the plate to the seat?
Where Jay was sitting? I don't. I mean, we can point out, we know the row and the section and his seat number, so that can be figured out, but we haven't done that yet.
Who in the Cubs organization have you been in contact with specifically?
We talked to in-house counsel for the Cubs last week. I did, and then actually this morning we talked to. I think they've hired retained outside counsel, so I talked to him this morning.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody, for coming.
Anyway, guys, a really interesting case there coming out of Chicago that happened earlier today, but I wanted to play that video. That's a Northwest suburban man from the Chicago area who has I guess they have yet to be in touch with the MLB, but they're planning to sue the MLB and the Cubs themselves for this. Relevant also because we're going to see the Cubs play the Nationals today in Game 3 of the NLDS coming up at 4:08 p.m. But I want to go over, guys, because I split screen that shot for you. What we're looking at next is an update, a presser in Las Vegas. And this is from our sister station KVVU in Las Vegas. They're going to be updating on the Vegas shooting. And we were just talking about this with Tom in the chair, and we were talking about how we didn't have a lot of updates for the past week, for the past few days. There hasn't been a lot of new information coming out, but you can see here the parking lot right outside near the strip there. We've seen this before, and they're setting up for this press conference, so I want to make sure we bring that to you live, and that's where we'll go from here. But I'm going to double box it with a picture of the continued wildfires, guys, that are spreading across California. We've been talking about this all morning. Napa County, Sonoma, and Mendocino counties. According to some of the reports that we've seen from our sister stations out there, KTVU is one of them in Oakland. The fire chief is saying at least 1,500 structures have been destroyed already in the fires that are raging there in Northern California. So a live look at some of those aerials, pretty scary stuff, and then we'll jump right into this press conference when that starts up. That should all be in just a second. But finally, an update and some more information from what's going on in Vegas, because we really haven't been playing much of that. Of course, we were off for the weekend here on the digital stream, but not a whole lot of information coming out of that. We'll see what police and officials have to offer for us. All right, back with that in a second, guys.
They may be taller or shorter. I don't know. Got it?
There we go. Where do you want me? This actually, Dan, if we could go ahead and bring that in once it's time. So like at the appropriate time, I'll have you go ahead and step over with that. I think it would be better than throughout the conference. So when I refer to it, then step up and then yeah, I'll refer to it and I'll step up and then we'll point it out and then and then we'll go back and then we can step out of it.
Okay.
Or would you guys rather just individually shoot it super up close? Or we could do both. Okay, we'll do both.
I'm fine with that. Is everybody in the shot right now, or do we need to? Is this okay? I guess this is okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good morning. My name is John Steinbeck. I'm Deputy Fire Chief with the Clark County Fire Department, and I also serve as the Emergency Manager for Clark County. Within moments after this tragic event, we opened up the Family Assistance Center, and the Family Assistance Center is still open at 3150 Paradise Road at the Las Vegas Convention Center in the South Hall. The Family Assistance Center we have a couple of hotlines that will also put you in touch with the Family Assistance Center, and those are 702-455-2433, that's 702-455-AID, or also 833-299-2433, and that's for out of state. I want to go ahead and reiterate some of the services that we provide here at the Family Assistance Center. They include our government services, including assistance with documents. They include travel arrangements, lodging, casework, immediate financial assistance for those affected, disaster mental health, and spiritual care. We have available clarification from the Attorney General's office for a clarification of benefits. And we also have legal advice from the Nevada Bar Association and Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. We also have on-site child care while you're getting processed through that. As of yesterday, we opened up the FBI, one of our partners, began processing personal effects and returning those back to the individuals that were attending the concert on October 1st. That process went extremely well for that day, but it was limited to the one section, which we'll get to here in just a second. One thing I want to continue to stress is that the Family Assistance Center is there for anybody that was affected by this incident and in attendance at the concert, the Route 91 Music Festival on October 1st. It is not exclusive to those that were physically injured. In fact, we encourage the other individuals there that are in need of assistance to come down to this center and let us help you. We have had some unbelievable partnerships to accomplish what we can to begin the healing process here at the Family Assistance Center. And two of our main partners has certainly been the FBI and the American Red Cross. We could not do this by any means without them. It became apparent hours after the incident occurred that we were going to need additional dogs to provide some of the crisis counseling and care that them and their handlers and along with the crisis care specialists can provide. So with that, the TAO group sponsored the dogs that you see here in front of us, and 4 additional dogs and handlers to come into the city for as long as we needed them and to give us this assistance, as the dogs that we had were being, and handlers were just being used past their capacity. So we are very grateful to them for that. I'd also like to explain that the FBI is expanding the area that they're going to go ahead and return some of their personal goods. Dan? This graphic illustrates this, and this is the seating areas. This is also available on the website, the FBI's website. I know it's very difficult for people that have been through this process to maybe even understand where they were sitting at a certain time or where they may have been in the facility, and that's okay. This is a general statement to say what areas have been processed and when your items will be able to be returned. As of yesterday, they began returning Section A. They returned personal effects to 99 individuals yesterday out of Section, not all exclusively out of Section A, but the majority of them being out of Section A. As of today, They're still returning items from Section A, and they will continue throughout the process, but Section B is also available. I do not have a time or anticipated start date for Section C, but we will announce that the moment it's available. And Section C is the largest area that had the most amount of personal effects in it. It is an incredibly organized and complex process that the FBI is going through to return this. It's very impressive to me, and I'm just grateful that they're here to handle this. They did have 776 requests come through the FBI's personal effects questionnaire that they have, and that's available on the website at fbi.gov/LV Music Festival Shooting. Another key partner that we've had throughout this entire ordeal is the American Red Cross. I can tell you that I've had the benefit of working with the American Red Cross now for 27 years in my profession, and they are amazing. But it's never more than at this time have I been more grateful to them than I am right now. There's no way that we could provide the services that we have or even come close to without them. I've brought a couple of the representatives with me today. Tom Holinsky, thank you very much. Tom Holinsky, I didn't want to make a mistake with his name, is here to talk about, he is the lead disaster mental health worker here at our facility. And then Tara Hughes will also be here available to answer any questions that we have. And she's really been our go-to person throughout this entire ordeal and at the Family Assistance Center. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to go ahead and explain some of the services that are available there at the Red Cross, and to explain some of the experiences or signs that some of the people that were affected by this horrible tragedy may be experiencing, and how we can go ahead and assist them. Then at the end, I'll go ahead and return, and we can answer any questions that are specific to these subjects. Tom? Thank you.
My name is Tom Helensky. That's H-L-E-N-S-K-I. And I am the lead DMH worker at the FAC, the Family Assistance Center. So I wanted to talk a little bit today. I'm going to make it brief, but I wanted to talk a little bit today about resiliency, because I think it's important to start on that note, that the human condition is equipped, well equipped, with the ability to recover. And our efforts here with the American Red Cross, with our workers, and teaming up with everybody else we're with, is to help people move towards that recovery. Now, the resilience will be impacted by the exposure to trauma, of course. So some people will take longer than others to become, more normalized in the reactions. So some of the complications that we would be looking for, to be looking at is what happens after you're exposed to a situation as bad as this one has been. So you would expect, again, based on level of exposure to trauma, you would expect that you would have sleep difficulties. You would expect that you would be fatigued. You would expect that you would be irritable with your partner. You would expect that you would have more confusion. So these are just some of the things that adults might expect. With regards to children, you might expect those too: the irritability, the lack of sleep, the dreams, the disturbance of what is normal was significant. So we would expect that. And it is one day at a time, and as some say, sometimes it's 10 minutes at a time, again, depending on level of exposure. At the FAC, we have, I think at this point, we have about 30 disaster mental health. We have emotional counselors that are Red Cross, that are there to provide services to the community in terms of, and to support the community and support the community agencies as you move towards recovery. So what are some of the things that we can do? They say rest. Well, let me go back to the children. Let me focus on that for a little bit. Because the children are going to show symptoms in different ways. So how do we circle the wagon, so to speak, and to move from fear to hope with our children and move to a position of feeling more safe and getting that vulnerability out of the way? So we slow things down. We listen to them. We encourage them to talk about the situation. We don't push them to talk about the situation. We validate their feelings regarding the situation. We encourage their questions, but we don't push that questioning. We go easy. We go step by step. They will perhaps be more clingy. They may not want to go to school. We want to establish, for adults and children, we want to establish our routine. We want to get back to the routine. And yes, it's okay to laugh in the home. It's okay to tell jokes. It's okay to get back into a normal rhythm. And yes, it's okay to be upset and to cry and to have sleepless nights and to have bad dreams. That's part of responding to stress. So now, some of the other things that we all can do, I'm going to go with the real home remedies first because I think they're very good. Chicken soup still works. It's still good. And I would recommend dinners. The dinners with the family dinners and stuff, they're still good. Those kind of comforts, recreation as a family or as individuals, getting out for that walk, taking up meditation, taking up yoga or whatever it may be, the swimming or the yard work or whatever it may be. You want to avoid the kind of things that will bring you to a more saddened state, like alcohol, for instance. That's where the chicken soup comes in as the counter to that. So those are some of the things that you can do, but on the very immediate, and again, I wish I could tell you what the timeline is for people feeling better. I just can say one day at a time and just keep doing this and let's see what 3 weeks bring. But in the meantime, what you can do immediately, and you don't have to have a problem, you can come to the Family Assistance Center. Red Cross volunteer emotional workers have flown in from across the entire country to support this response. They are here. They will answer your questions. Any question you have is a good question, and you don't have to have a problem. We are there. We are ready. Please come. Thank you.
So as I've said, since this tragedy has occurred, we're only here to serve the people that have been affected by this, our community, and to start the recovery process of this and do whatever we can, and we will be here as long as it's possible, as long as it's needed. I'm very grateful to our friends here from the Courthouse Dogs Foundation for coming in and taking their time out to come to this. They've been busy at the hospitals and also at the Family Assistance Center, and we're going to keep them busy throughout the weeks. Well, throughout the week, excuse me. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful to the media as well, because yesterday we saw as many people yesterday at the Family Assistance Center as we had the previous 3 days. And while there's no exact formula for this, we expect there's 2 reasons for that. Well, 3 reasons actually. One is that the personal effects were driving some more people there and giving them a reason to come in, and then they were seeing whatever other services were available. Number 2, the time that it takes people to process that. But number 3 was the increased messaging that we went ahead and pushed out, and I really appreciate that. So please continue to forward and follow and like our social media at clarkcountynv.gov. And we'll keep pushing out those messages. And with that, I'm available for any questions on these subjects. No questions. This is a first. Go ahead. Yeah, so the question was the process as to how the personal effects are returned, and a little bit about that. I do have some knowledge on it, but I'm certainly not the expert on it by any means. This is the FBI that's facilitating this and doing a fantastic job. I can tell you that it's extremely organized, that the cell phones so to paint a little bit of a picture, the question was directly about the cell phones. Every cell phone that's been recovered is being plugged in and turned on to see if they can go ahead and find the owner that way. Other than that, it's through the identification process. They've got a process that they work out to once the owner comes back. So it's going two ways. The FBI has been reaching out to people proactively to return some of those items. And they've also, when they come in, have been working through them through a systematic approach to identify that item. And I can tell you it's been very successful. It's amazing. It's been very successful so far. Yeah, thank you for that question. The question, what times and how long the Family Assistance Center will be open. Family Assistance Center will be open at its current location through October 20th. After that, we will be moving to a long-term resiliency center that we are working out the process as to exactly what that'll look like at the end. But it'll be here at the Las Vegas Convention Center through the 20th, and the FBI's intentions are to also be there co-located with us through the 20th. And the time of day is we open up at 9 o'clock in the morning and we close at 7 o'clock in the evening, and we're there on weekends. So our goal is to make ourselves available to be able to provide these services. I don't. I can tell you that I do not. I can just tell you from taking a look at it, it's just thousands and thousands of items. Truckload after, many truckloads that have been picked up, more than I would have ever expected, but I don't have any numbers on it. It is a mix of everything. For instance, there was thousands of just lawn chairs that were there, but there's lots of electronics, there's lots of bags, there's lots of hats, there's boots, there's clothing, there's gifts that were bought for people there at the event. There's wallets, there's identification, there's, you name it, anything that anybody might have been carrying with them at the time is available or is there and was picked up, and there's an attempt to return it. Any other questions?
All right, guys, so that seems to be the latest from Clark County, from the Vegas. I think we were sort of expecting maybe a different type of update about the Vegas shooting, but this one actually was somewhat of a welcome change. I think they had the guy from the representing the American Red Cross talk about counseling and mental health and children even, and their responses and reactions to this tragedy that happened last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, October 1st, of course. We're going to continue to follow this as more information comes out from officials and police, of course, in the investigation of the suspect involved in this. And this seems to be a little bit more technical about the spaces and also, again, how they're dealing with some of the reaction to some of the people who have been, of course, traumatized by this massacre. So anyway, just wanted to jump in there because that was coming to us live at the end of our stream now. We're going to take you back in here, and we'll have more for you guys digitally on our Facebook page and on the web, of course, fox5dc.com, our Facebook page, Fox5DC. We have all our web stories updated there. We'll post them and keep the engagement and comments rolling, guys. We're going to be back here at Fox 5 Live on YouTube tomorrow at 11:30 as usual, and we'll be jumping around our different sources. Hopefully not too much really bad weather news to report. Like you said, we've been kind of showing you the bum shots of everything today, including this, which is a live look at Denver, which is snowy Denver. This time of year, it's known for being a city that can be kind of both. It can be sunny one day and then winter the next. And now we're seeing the first bit of snow in Denver, Colorado today. We also saw a lot of those wildfires, and we're going to continue to follow that and update you guys on that. as well as that kind of continues in Northern California. So with that, it looks like the press conference is ending. Kind of just, he closed it down with a few questions and answers. So we'll close it down here too, guys. More coverage, of course, on our broadcast tonight on TV. And we're here in the digital for you guys all of the time on our web and on our Facebook. But here in Fox 5 Live, 11:30 on the weekdays. I'm Molly inside the newsroom. We'll see you tomorrow for more. We'll leave you with a shot of DC, which is now looking bright and sunny, but I hear it's really humid out. Nats game at 4:08 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully some good news tomorrow after the Nats game. That's in Chicago today, so I know a bunch of us will be running out of work to try to catch some of that game. Here's a live look at the Capitol, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.